3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Temple Podcast. I'm Ed DePasquale, martial artist and licensed massage therapist. Today I am sitting with my best friend, one of my oldest friends, Camille Interligi. She is a licensed clinical psychologist, an author, tarot reader, sewing enthusiast, leather worker too.
Yes.
Your Insta is slow them, right? So it's slow at slow period THEMME, like fem and them put into one.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's basically, it's your identity,
Yes.
in a word. It's very, very clever. It's very clever.
Thank you. Thank you.
So how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Sitting in my house as I have been doing every single day.
Yeah.
I actually just started learning a new skill. I'm practicing a new creative thing, which is chainmail. So I've been sitting in my house making this necklace and putting all these little tiny links together.
I'll send you the address so you can send me some armor,
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you imagine I show up to spar in chainmail? Like, what? This is just the shirt I'm wearing,
I mean, that would probably be really intimidating to other people. And
Yeah.
You could use that shit to just, I don't know, make your body even more powerful.
Yeah, as a flail. Well, they do that. There's I'm a resident crazy person. I don't know if you follow my girlfriend yet, and she put me on her story the other day. She's like, when you're dating a martial artist, and it's me stretching out in the front, it's me stretching out in the front yard, beating my shins with a stick, because it's like I need hard shins,
Yeah. Wow.
You realize eventually when you get your leg checked for the first time and you can't put your leg down and walk, that you're like, oh, there may be something to what my teacher's doing that I need to start doing too. It's like, how did you get your legs so hard? Why are your shins so hard? It's like over time you develop it. It's a really interesting process. So that whole concept that you're talking about of iron body and stuff like that. What you're doing is you're deadening the nerve endings in the skin and muscle tissue on, the nociceptors, the things that receive danger signals.
Yeah.
You're deadening those to a certain extent. And the other thing that you're doing is you're causing microfractures in the bone. So it's not a comfortable process, but
Oh, of course not.
You cause these microfractures in the outer surface of the bone. I think it's the perineum, the outer surface of the bone. And those fill in with calcium deposits, which are harder.
Yeah.
So when you break a bone, they can always tell where it broke because you have this little band of calcium holding it together.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of develop a ridge of that. And then you
over your whole shin.
Over the whole. So I'm at a point now where I'm hitting it and it sounds like you're, hitting wood against wood, just clack, 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 clack. And she's like, you're out of your mind. I'm like, don't worry, you'll get here one day. Wait till the classes where we're kicking shins against each other,
So, okay, you definitely know a lot more about pain and about receptors than I do. How does that work?
Different fields.
How does that work with pleasure? Are those pain receptors so different from pleasure receptors that you will still experience pleasure if someone touches your shin in a nice way?
Yeah. Well, your nerve endings. So here's really what it is. Pain is not an input. Pain is an output. And people don't really understand that. Pain is an input from the brain. Pain is an output from the brain. Your nociceptors receive danger. Mm-hmm. So there's a very interesting TED Talk by an Australian gentleman. I forget his name, but if you look up, pain TED Talk, I'm sure you'll find it. He's an Australian doctor.
You can put it in the show notes.
Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes. I never think to do stuff like that, links to the stuff we talked about. I need to hire somebody. Once I have staff, they can do that.
Get an intern.
I do everything myself. Like even the theme song, it was me on Apple Loops, just
Uh-huh.
putting it all together, you know? But
Uh-huh.
anyway, enough tooting my own horn. So yeah, so basically he tells this story of he's walking through the jungle and, you know, or walking through the bush, you know, and he's in Australia and he hits a stick and he's like, ow, and it was just a stick. And then he got used to sticks brushing against his shins, and then he feels something. He goes, "Oh, it's nothing." And the next thing you know, he passed out because he had gotten bit by a snake.
Oh,
So
jeez.
since he was under the assumption that he had just walked past a stick, he didn't feel the pain. How that works is your nociceptors are really receiving, we call them pain receptors, but they're really receiving danger signals. And then
Yeah.
that danger, the level of danger is then perceived by the brain. And then the level of pain you experience is what you experience
Right.
based on how much danger your brain thinks that you're in. So notice anxious people, anxious people I find in training are always the ones that are like, ow, that hurt really bad. I really can't do it. I don't know if I can do
Up.
more of this. I really don't know. Like I'm doing push-ups, but like my chest hurts now. Like should I stop? Like, am I going to permanently damage my pecs? Like,
Uh-huh.
what about my shoulders? My shoulders hurt. You know, I have knee
Yep.
pain. I can't sit in stances because my knees hurt. I'm like, no, your knees are supposed to hurt. Like sit in the stance until your knees stop hurting. They're like,
Yeah.
what? It's because, you know what, it's a completely counterintuitive thing, and it has to be a lifestyle or you will damage yourself,
Yeah. I mean,
you
but that
know?
makes sense though. Like people who are put in extraordinary circumstances and can like move cars off of people, for example. Like, yeah, that would probably really hurt if they were afraid of it.
Well,
But
you're capable of 10 times more strength than you can exert. It's all about
yeah,
mind over matter. And the thing in those instances is that again, that danger signal is
right.
switched off. You have something in your muscles called the Golgi tendon organ, which is like, if you say I have my hand like this and you drop 20 pounds into my hand, the thing that stops this from pulling and tearing is the Golgi tendon organ. It
Uh-huh.
sees that force and goes, I have to contract to protect the joint.
Uh-huh.
So, all that kind of stuff in moments like that gets turned off because you're only focused on, I have to save my kid who's under this car. And then
Exactly.
you lift it and push it off. They say like, that's like, you know, zombie theory. Like if you want to look into science fiction zombie theory, that's why
Yeah.
zombies are so strong, because all that stuff is turned off, you know? That
Mm-hmm.
could be a theory as to why they're so strong, because all that stuff is turned off, like, you know, in
Yeah.
the making science fiction reality kind of lore. But have you been seeing clients in all this? Like, are you Zooming with clients?
Yeah, I am.
I can tell
Um,
from the expression that it's a lot of fun.
no, okay, so I love being a therapist. Like I truly love it. And I am really grateful to be working at a university because all of the figuring out how to transition to teletherapy and all of the considerations that go into doing teletherapy were really thought about for me. Like I just have to follow instructions and like sign on to this particular platform and like use my HIPAA secure technology that was provided to me to meet with the people that I was already seeing and to meet with new people.
Mm-hmm.
So it really hasn't been difficult as a transition in general. I was really worried about what it would be like to do therapy over Zoom or over the internet. Like before this happened, I was very against teletherapy theoretically. Like I thought it would really hurt the way that I was able to connect with my clients, even though teletherapy and telemedicine has so many benefits. Like think about all the people who couldn't access a therapist in person, who are in rural areas. And now, I mean, telemedicine was really their only option to do that before, but now like it's more widespread. So there's even more people that they have access to.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I understand its function, but I didn't really ever want to do it. But I kind of like it. Like, I like that I don't have to commute to my office, which I take the bus. So it's like 45 minutes to work
Mm-hmm.
and then 45 minutes home. Like, I'm saving a lot of time in my day. I'm in my own space, which is really comfortable. And it's especially great with the clients that I already have because, like, they know me and I know them. And it's just like settling into a regular Zoom chat that you would have with a friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's a little bit more challenging, I think, to develop that strong relationship at first, but it's not impossible. And I mean, what's one session of getting to know someone versus like 2 sessions of getting to know someone? It's like
Yeah,
really
no.
not that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things.
And not even to mention, I mean, I feel like reality, you might, there may be a perceived notion that you've made more progress because you're in person. You can feel that other person's
Right.
energy in front of them, but it might not necessarily be true. There's so much that we just like consider. Also, periosteum is what I was saying before, not perineum, periosteum. Periosteum. I have to correct myself. I'm gonna put in the notes. It's like
Yeah.
it's like in the last episode that I had. He's a good friend from school, Alex Karras, who's the most recent interview I just posted. He says in the interview, and he texted me afterwards, he's like, dude, I think I said people that wear masks are dumb. And I was like, listen, the interview's the interview and it's 1 second. And like, he's really talking about people that are like driving alone in their car with 3 masks on as if it's some airborne thing coming through their thing. Because it just upsets him because people are so unaware of how health and viruses and stuff like that work, you know? So that's that, you know, but it's like you say dumb things on a podcast because you're just talking and talking and talking. And then it's like, you know what I mean? But yeah, like what you were saying with Zoom with clients, I noticed that teaching the kids via Zoom, you know, I'm trying to get, and the other thing is, I don't know how old a lot of your clients are. You work with mainly adults?
So I work at a university. So my clients are students and undergrad and graduate students. So, I mean, any person of any age can be in college, but it's typically people who are 18 or older.
Yeah. Children are a little bit different because you gotta like be like, hey, I'm over here. Hey, you know, I am here. Yeah.
Yeah. Working with kids is certainly not my expertise and really not what I'm looking to do. Working with college students is great because it's like, they're really at such a critical time in their identity development. Like they might be away from home for the first time and really getting to figure out what they want their lives to look like and what values they've grown up with that they want to keep and which values they want to develop for themselves. So it's really like, it's such an inspiring time to get to intervene with people and like join with people on discovering who they are.
You're one of those rare breeds that knew what they wanted to do since we were kids. And you were always ahead of the curve too. I mean, like I'm very much the person for the people who were listening. I mean, I know we know each other, but like for the people who are listening, I've known Camille since I'm 31 now. And I think I was 15 when we met. At the theater department in the high school, you know. And we've been friends ever since. She's been like a sister to me my whole life. And you've always been ahead of the curve. Like I remember I got cheated on. And I was in your backyard and I was like, that's slut. And you're like, slut is not a nice word. And it's not a word that you should use anymore.
Yeah.
And let me explain to you why. You were always that example. Like I've preached a lot in the other episodes and in Instagram posts and stuff. Like I think the thing that I wanted to start talking was when I made that post last year about people need to stop yelling at each other. I made some video and it was well received and I was like, I could kind of do this. And then here we are a year later.
Yeah.
You know, so like you were always the person that you never yelled at people for not agreeing with you. You never got upset with people for like not seeing things your way or for having a difference of opinion. You've always heard them out or educated people as to why things are the way that they are. I mean, obviously if you're like, if I was going to say like, you know, like I'm going to use that word no matter what, because you know, it's that's then I'm being the jerk, but you know, you've never been like that. The stereo, you know, there's this stereotype now of people who are progressive or people who are pro LGBTQ that are going to just scream in your face if you don't understand or if you don't know. You know, I dealt with a little bit of that. Cancel culture, exactly. Yeah, that's the phrase I'm thinking of. I dealt with a little bit of that when I was a manager at Starbucks. But I had a wonderful coworker who I think I've discussed with you named Robin, who was not Robin when we met, and then transitioned in the middle of, it was like, hey, can we talk in the back room by the milk fridge for like 5 minutes? Oh, by
Yeah.
the way, my name's Robin now, and here's who I am. And I was like, listen, can I call you dude? Because I call everybody dude. And she was like, I don't like that, but I know you, and that's something
Mhm.
that you say, so I don't really give a shit. You
Yeah.
know? I was like, because that's gonna come out my face, and I can't help that. Because everybody, as far as everybody's dude. I'm a dude. It's Good Burger all over. I'm a dude.
Yeah.
You're a dude. We're all dudes. Like that's how my mom always yells at me, and it's like, don't call me dude. It's Dudette. I'm like, all right, ma, shut up. You know, but
So can I like,
but she was. I'm sorry. The point I was making is she was so unbelievably good about over the course of the next 6 months, questions I had, what I can and can't say,
yeah.
how I should and shouldn't act, what makes them uncomfortable, or what makes them feel more welcome and accepted. Like I had no
Mhm.
idea. I was completely out of my realm. You know.
Great.
And you were gonna say?
Yeah, I was going to ask like how that looked for you as you continued to work with her. Did you decrease how much you were saying dude to her?
I definitely thought about it, but I didn't kick myself for the times that it slipped out. I
Yeah.
didn't kick myself for the times that I accidentally, I accidentally dead named her a few times. I didn't
Mhm.
mean to, but I was just like, oh, sorry, and just moved on.
That's
You know what I mean?
exactly what you should be doing. So way to go.
Like it's like, hey, Robin, get the banana bread. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's
Yeah.
not like, of course, there were times where I said things where it was like, hey, you need to not do that, and then I felt bad about it, but like there's two things. So bullies come from insecurity.
Mhm.
So if you not knowing something about these people makes you feel insecure, then you tend to then revolt against their ideas and their ideals. I am
Mhm.
not ashamed to say that I am uncomfortable with anybody under the age of 18 being on any kind of hormone therapy because I feel like your body needs to develop, or you could seriously. That's just for me as you know. I know I'm a massage therapist, but I'm a healthcare professional. Like that's
Sure.
I just don't. Your endocrine system needs to develop, and your brain function is going to be potentially harmed by any kind of hormone therapy that you're on prior to being ready. I don't have anything. I don't see anything against you doing whatever you want once you're an adult. You can do whatever you want once you're an adult.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter. And when you're a child, dress however you want. Be called whatever you want. Talk to them. Put them in therapy. Have them be with a professional who can help them sort their feelings. Which is exactly what you wanted to do when we were
Yeah.
kids. I remember you originally called it sex therapy, and I think that
Yeah.
phrase that is that still what it's called? Because I know that phrase is a little bit conflated. I know people have used that kind of as a I've seen, like there's a lot of like talk and porn of sex therapy, and it becomes something totally different than like what it
Yeah.
actually is. I feel like it's got a bad title. So is that
So sex therapy is a specific kind of therapy where you're helping people with what's labeled as sexual dysfunction. And I have a lot of problems with those terms because the roots of what sexual dysfunction is, like that's rooted in white heteronormative patriarchy. It's a lot of words, but it's basically rooted in white men's ideas of like what is sexually acceptable.
right?
But people come and do sex therapy when they have sexual problems or so sexual problems with themselves or in a relationship. And the function of sex therapy is to help them find tangible solutions to work on those problems and to explore perhaps the origins of those problems.
Mm.
What life experiences might those be connected to, or what social and cultural contexts might their distress be connected to? So like a woman who is not really interested in sex very much, has a low sex drive, the DSM, like the handbook about mental disorders, labels that as an actual sexual dysfunction, like a disorder that needs to be remedied. But maybe there are things in our culture like the idea that women should be either virginal or they're whores, that like
Right, but meanwhile, if I rack my numbers up, I get high fives all over the place, you know?
right. So there's these ideas about what women's sexuality should look like that might make any woman question whether hers is normal. So maybe that's something to talk about in sex therapy, rather than just like, here's how you have sex with your husband or your partner.
Right, like that's
a million times a week.
Like, you know, like basically I wanted to know more about sex therapy, so I Googled sex therapy, and it was not, you know, a not safe for work search result, you know what I mean? It's like, it's a lot of like, here's how you put a condom on with your mouth, you know what I mean? Like, and it's like, that's not, I know that's not what you're doing. That's, you know, I mean, like maybe it is, but you know, like that's not the point. And again, 2020 has been a big year for us learning. How do I put this? We use shitty words. We use shitty words and shitty phrases, and there's nothing else that I can really say about it. And people are uncomfortable being wrong and realizing that how they were taught or how they came up or what they believed could potentially be false. And the older you get, you know, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. It's really, it's really, you know, I drink coffee before every podcast, and then I end up saying excuse me 15 times because I'm burping. I gotta just stop. So there goes all the seriousness of my point. But no, so like people's egos get cemented within them. And you build these borders up around this identity. Like, you ever watched Attack on Titan?
I haven't, but my stepchild loves Attack on Titan. Well,
whenever we get to meet, we will talk lots about Attack on Titan. I love that. Guys, secrets, I'm a nerd. And anime is awesome.
I don't know that that's really a secret.
It's not a secret. But so basically in Attack on Titan, you have like the core of civilization, all the higher ups and elites that are in the middle of the city. And then as you get more impoverished or more farmland, you move outward. And there's walls around each piece of the city to protect what's coming from outside in, right? And if you use that as a metaphor for how you build up this security around your identity, you have the you that you believe that you are, boom, that's smack dab in the middle, protected by everything. So you have all these walls that are in the way of that, and all these ideas from the outside have to penetrate the, you know, that, let's say that second layer is the you that you want to be and the you that you wish to present to the world. And then that layer that on the outside is the you in your work, the you that you know, the you at work, or the you that everybody really sees, you know what I mean? Like, let's say here's public, here's friends, and here's reality. You know, these outside thoughts and outside ideas have to make their way through all this other bullshit before it can affect who you really are. That can be painful. That can be really painful for people to have to accept and have to learn these lessons. So they just shut it out, or they talk shit, or they don't want it. They just don't, you know, it's challenging. It's not easy. It's not something it's not something that everybody is going to just sign up for immediately. It's a very difficult process. And throughout the past few years now, but now more than ever, especially with the Black Lives Matter movement, we're talking about why things are the way that they are, you know, you know, of course, I'm upset and deeply disturbed about that child that was shot and killed. But the guy's already in jail. And this is the stuff that I'm reading about. Like, the reason that it's not being brought to public attention in social media and by people from these movements is because the person who shot the kid is already in jail. He's already been arrested. He's already, you know, he's going to be prosecuted, if he's not already prosecuted, very soon. And I guarantee you he's going to be put on death row or serving life in prison. You know what I mean? Like, so justice is being served. Of course, the crime is terrible, but like, how much further do you need to go when the person responsible is already in jail? Meanwhile, you have police officers who have committed heinous acts that are protected by immunity just for being police officers, that we now have to circumvent and spend months and months and months coming to a resolution, you know? Like,
I think why are we focusing on an incident like that is really to do more of the questioning that you talked about, like understanding the why. Like, why are things the way they are? Why do we have a society where this kind of crime can happen? This kind of violation of human rights and human life. Like, why do those things occur? And there's no way to explore that without looking at it through a lens of race, a lens of gender, a lens of heteronormativity. Like, all of those identities, all of those isms shape how, well, first of all, what is crime? And then how and why crime occurs. Does that make sense? Like,
Do you mean like just people being wrongfully accused of crimes, or like what?
I mean, like, why do we have a society where adults kill children?
Right.
Like, why does that exist?
Right. Why is that man so disturbed and so upset that he would see a white child and think that that child needs to die just because his brother, because, you know, maybe his cousin got killed by a cop, maybe his brother got killed by a cop, you know what I mean? Maybe he has been the victim of racism his entire life. Maybe he grew up in the projects and had not a dollar to his name, and this is all, I know nothing about him, you know what I mean? This is all just theory, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Grew up with nothing, living on food stamps, and was taught his entire life that it's because of white people.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Why do we live in a society where disproportionately more Black children are murdered by white adults? Like, that's the kind of questioning that I'm talking about. Like,
people don't want to listen. It's confusing. And what the point that I was making before is that the shitty terminology that we use is part of our language, and our language is how we communicate. So if we can all be on the same page with the language that we're using and understand what these phrases actually mean. I mean, yes, a lot of things are going to end up being opinion, and a lot of things are going to end up being different between different parties. But
mm-hmm.
it's a confusing world we live in. It's not simple. Yeah. Nothing is black and white, you know. Nothing is black and white. Nothing is truly set in stone. Everything is open for interpretation, and we need to be able to be loving and open and patient so that we can learn about individuals instead of put people in groups. And this comes from our, you know, feudalistic tribal society. We grew up in groups. We had these little tribes, you know, we evolved in these groups. It's part of our monkey brains, you know.
Mm-hmm.
We have these monkey primal brains that tell us to be part of a tribe. That, you know, we need our circle of people to protect us so that we can get the food and get the water and get the babies protected and raised with our ideals, so we can keep doing things the way that we've done them, because the way that we do things keeps us alive.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the basis of it all. It's our society has ways of doing things that keep us all alive. So it must work, and ours must be the best way. And also, because the gods, when I pray to the gods for rain, my crops grow.
Right.
So it means my gods are real, you know? So it's like we go through this again and again and again and again and again. And then we build this off of this foundation, you know what I mean? We have, excuse me, we have, you know, let's say Sioux, you know, you have Sioux Indians, that's tribe, right? And now let's grow this more now. Now I'm a New Yorker. I'm a New Yorker. That's my tribe. I'm a New Yorker. You don't understand because you're not from New York. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have, I'm an American. So here's another part of a tribe. You know, I'm an American. That's the tribe that I'm in. These are the ideals that I represent because I'm an American and my country's the best country. And it's like, bro, we're from the planet. We're all from the planet. We live on this giant silicon rock that has a spinning ball of hot magma in the middle of it, flying around a giant fireball in the sky that's going to burn for 10 million more years. Like, that's fucking crazy. That's insane. When you look up at the sky and you see a meteor fall into the atmosphere and watch it burn up, that could have been the end of society. If that was a little bit bigger and hit the planet, that could have ended everything. So how fucking important is it that your point gets across? It's not really like, you know what I mean? Like, why can't we just figure out how to coexist and what's best for the people that are here so we can live the best lives possible? Because it could all be taken away at any moment. If you understand the fragility of life, and if you appreciate how rare it is for you to be here, there might be 7.5 or 7.7 billion people on the planet now. But how many millions of years did it take for that to happen? How many people never made it to adulthood? How many sperm cells don't, penetrate the egg and become you?
Yeah.
What's your chance? What's your chance of that one cell? Because if it was a different cell, you wouldn't be you. You'd be somebody else. So what's the chance of that one cell becoming you? That you are now here and you're going to spread hate because that, you're going off of what your dad taught you. You're going off of what your tribe taught you. You're going off of what society taught you about these certain groups of people, or you didn't take the time to educate yourself about history and you don't want to know about it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's talk about the fact that we hate the Republican Party because Republican parties, this is why I don't believe in the bipartisan system. We believe that the Republican Party is evil and that it's racist and that it's this and that it's that. Meanwhile, the Democrats started the KKK. They funded the KKK's rise. And the Republicans were started by, I think, 3/4 black individuals in Texas in 1820, I think it was, 1824, 25. It was like 130 something people, and 115 or 120 of them, the numbers are a little off, were black, and like 30 people were white. And they all came to an agreement in the 1800s and started the Republican Party. You know what I mean? But the Republicans are they're racist. If you're a Republican, you're racist. It's like, no, you have a political ideal that represents this fucking tribe that we've boxed ourselves into. Also, the concept of protest voting pisses me off, because you're going to tell me that a vote for anybody other than Biden is a vote for Trump. So, but it's my right as an American to vote for who I want to vote for. So what business is it of yours to have an opinion about who I vote for? That's why you're not supposed to tell people who you vote for, is to avoid shit like that. I got into a huge argument the last election because I voted for Jill Stein because I wanted Bernie. And I was like, I'm not voting for either of them because I don't believe in either of them. Hillary's murdering people all over the place. I guarantee you there's bullshit in those emails. And now Harvey Weiner fled the country, or whatever, or Anthony Weiner or whatever it was, fled the country after Ghislaine Maxwell exposed all that stuff. So, and God, I forget his name. Somebody else fled the country. Anthony Weiner might be in prison. Some people fled the country. A lot of Democrats and a lot of Republicans were on that list. Like, it's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. You're set up to feel, out of fear, like you have to choose between these two people, and we're forced to make a lesser evil decision. So all you're doing is being groomed to choose lesser evils so that you can just be okay with how shit things are, because they don't want to spend the money or spend the time to fix it, you know? And his running mate imprisoned people for marijuana, you know, denied, as a prosecutor, denied DNA evidence that would exonerate people on death row just because she wanted to win as a prosecutor. You know what I mean? Like, dude, she's not a good person. She's not a good person. And neither is Biden. Biden's all over the place in the 70s being a racist. So yeah, people can change, but at the same time, like, he's showing clear signs of early onset dementia. Like, why do we have this person as a running partner? I can't. The past 10 years of politics, ever since Bush, I have been like down with the bipartisan system, because you can't make honest decisions. It's whoever that tribe says is going to be the ones that make it. And then the DNC or the Republican National Convention or whatever it is makes the decisions for these people. And then, not even to mention, we have I'm ranting now, but I feel like it's important. Now we also have the Electoral College that's still in place. The purpose of the Electoral College was before we had things like, phones, mail, internet, back when it was like the fucking Pony Express, or you would have to send mail through contested territory and wonder if your mail carrier was going to be shot by Native Americans on their way.
Now we have to worry about whether our votes really count if they're being,
They're
sent through
not.
the mail.
They're
So.
not going to. I got into a huge argument on Facebook about this the other day. They're not going to. And not to mention the fact that it's another fucked up move. They're getting rid of the automatic mail sorting, or they're trying to get rid of automatic mail sorting and have people do it by hand. So it's going to be this never-ending process of trying to get the votes in. And I was like, remember the Bush recount where they had to count everything by hand? You know how long that took, and how much longer we had to wait for an outcome because of one state. And you're going to talk about the entire nation, but I can go buy milk. I think it's crazy. You know what I mean? There's a place I live in Comac now with Jen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I live with Jen and her family, and down the road there's this place called Toxic Wings. It sounds gross, but the wings are actually really good.
I mean, does it just mean like very spicy wings?
Yeah. It's like you can get wings that'll melt your face off. That's really all it is.
Okay.
And every night there's a crowd of like 25, 30 people. I mean, they've all got masks on, but so they can go get wings, but we can't extend voting to a week or 2 weeks and then say like, okay, Monday through Tuesday is going to be A through D. So if you're an A through D, go online and pick a time slot so we can be prepared for how many people are going to be there, and we can have enough staff to keep people 6 feet apart, and we can line it up and wrap it around the school, or we can have you wait in your car and we'll send text messages for certain groups to come in. There's ways to do it. There's ways to do it. I mean, like I'm a dummy and I figured it out just now. like I have a GED. Like I dropped out of high school and I can figure that shit out. And you got people with fucking
That doesn't, okay, just because you drop out of high school does not mean that you're not smart.
No, but I don't have a master's degree and this isn't like what I do for a living and I can figure it out. And these people are saying that we have to mail shit in and then getting pissed and saying that like you're an evil right-wing prick for not wanting mail-in voting. It's like, nah, dude, was the left not yelling about Russia, it's just anything that has to do with Trump is immediately made evil. Like, were the left not saying like, find out that Russia tampered with our voting last year so we can get Trump out of office? It's like, okay, so it's okay. You're going to say that it's okay oh yeah, the votes were definitely tampered with because Trump's in office, but all of a sudden you think he's not going to tamper with it when it's mail-in and he can do whatever he wants. Like, so, like, are you out of your mind? Like, like locks keep the honest. You know what I mean? Meaning like if you're going to commit a crime, you're going to find a way to do it anyway. I feel the same way about guns. Like, let me buy a gun because people committing gun violence sure as shit aren't getting them legally. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like it is what it is. So, but to get back on topic, all of this overwhelming anxiety that's surrounding this year and everything that we're learning about society, everything we're learning about ourselves and about the way we should and shouldn't speak has something that you've been preaching about our entire lives. You've always known about the power of language. So let's talk about if you want to, you coming out. Because I thought that was really cool. So let's talk about your decision to do that. And how you identify.
Before we talk about that, I did want to at least just acknowledge that I think we have some different opinions about politics. And that one thing that I wanted to say is that something you said about picking the lesser of two evils. I think oftentimes we are put in that position, and that's really frustrating. Like the system that is in place sucks. Point blank. Like it sucks, and you articulated that incredibly well. And it is currently the system we have to work with. And when faced with these two realistic choices, which one is going to be the least harmful for example, for Black people or LGBTQ people? And I feel like that choice is probably really clear. And last year, if you'd asked me the same question, I probably would have had an opinion that was very similar to yours. Like, fuck it, like my vote is my vote. And like, that is still true. And how can I use my vote to benefit the most people possible? Like, I think that's the way of thinking that's guiding my decisions this year.
One thing that's really frustrated me is like all the other people on the ballot that you vote for when you go to vote for the president, because I don't know who the fuck those people are, and I have no
That's
idea
a problem.
I don't
Neither
know.
do I.
I don't know how the fuck do I find out who they are, because I've tried to Google them and it's just like a bunch of opinion pieces. You can't find their track record. There's no campaign, like there's a little bit of a campaign, but unless you know the guy, like I worked at
I
a
feel like
Starbucks for a guy that was campaigning for like county office, Will Ferraro. Nice dude, but like that's the only reason I know about him, because he was standing in front of me,
Yeah, I feel like that's something that people are getting more and more into, like creating timelines of these people's political histories or their belief systems, and what they do. I think a huge problem is that there is very little education about who we're voting for. And I'm also someone who like doesn't have as much education as I need to be making these informed voting decisions.
and they're very important. It affects you. It affects your life. How these officials are going to handle even at the community level, like, is going to affect your life and affect everything.
Yes. In fact, those local politicians are some of the most important that we should be aware of and know what they're doing, help keep them accountable, and like vote in those elections. Like, local politics are fucking where it's at. Like, that's where we need to be in a major way. And I can't say that I have been very much involved in local politics in the past. Is that something I'm trying to be better at? Definitely.
Same. It's not easy though. Like I find myself kind of spinning,
Yeah, there's a lot to keep track of. And when you zoom out a bit, I think that's part of its design, is to keep us unaware of what's going on, to make it confusing, and to make it difficult or seem difficult to participate in our governmental process.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I went to a Black Lives Matter protest, and there was a lawyer who, it was like a sit-in with speakers, and there was a lawyer, and she shared that one of the most important things that we can do as citizens, as voting citizens, is lobby. And not with money, but like contact our government officials by email and say, these are the issues that are important to me. And if you are not supporting X, Y, and Z, I will not vote for you. Because they care about votes way more than they care about money. At least that's what this lawyer said. And it was very inspiring to me.
It is a big deal, it's because they want, often power trumps money, and
they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
But if you don't get the votes, you don't get the money.
Right. And you don't
get to control the money.
Yes. I think that's really where it lies, because you're in control then. Once you're voted in, you're in control. So it's like, it sounds better. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like you get to put that on it's another little tally mark for you. It's like, oh, and I'm county whatever the fuck, and the local politics are going to be what affects the little things around you, and even how they handle your street, how they handle your cleanup in the winter, like why didn't the highways get plowed, blah 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 blah. It's like, well, what town is that section of the highway in?
Mm-hmm. And then why in my city did they tear down low-income housing to build a Whole Foods less than a mile away from another Whole Foods, and then decide not to build anything? So now there's just this empty lot.
Oh, that's great.
Where homes used to be.
That's awesome. Yeah. And they push those people out of their homes because they're low income, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
And that should be illegal, because those are human beings that like need a place to live. What I loved about this was So, I've struggled with finance my whole life, and this is not a sob story. It's just the fact,
Right.
my dad was never around. We came from nothing, my grandparents weren't rich. My mother was a student when I was coming up. She was 21, like, it's funny thinking now, like,
Mhm.
now I'd have a 10-year-old if I was
Huh.
her, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because like
Yeah.
I'm having trouble taking care of myself, let alone another life.
Mhm.
I feed the cat in the morning, so that's one for me. But like, like, no,
Well, you
but
care for so many children in your job
yeah,
as a
yeah,
doctor.
yes, and I care for people as a massage therapist as well. But
Yes.
like, I'm just making a joke. I'm just kidding.
I know. I know.
But so like, and I had to kind of put everything into going back to school. I put
Mhm.
everything into going to tech school when I was 21, and I put everything into building a good collection of tools as a mechanic. And then I had to put everything into paying that off. And then I had to
Yep.
put everything into saying, hey, this wasn't a good career. I need to kind of like go back to school,
Mhm.
and figure something else out. And now I'm finally in a position at 31 where I can start kind of like building,
Yeah.
That being said, I'm one of the people who was making more money after the $600 was whatever. And
Right.
you have all these people close to me, I'm not going to call anybody out, but people close to me that were in group chats and and talking to me directly as if I agreed with them, like not knowing my
Right.
situation, like
Right.
being like, these fucking lazy pieces of shit. You know what I mean?
No.
These XYZs, these freeloaders. And it's like, listen, I'm sorry that like you're still working, but like,
No, that just exposes how fucked up our government is that they won't
yeah,
pay people a living wage.
for real, for real.
Like,
We're talking about like, first of all, McDonald's doesn't need 18 billion locations. You know what I mean? That they're gonna have to close. They're gonna have to close a couple of stores to pay their people enough to fucking survive. You know what I mean? I
yeah,
dealt with it. I was a manager at Starbucks, a fucking manager, and I made $15 an hour.
that's
My ex,
garbage.
she was working at the time. She was working at Starbucks for I think 8 years, and she stepped down from a management position, making as much money as she possibly could in that position, and they knocked her down to base pay. There were people that had not moved up in the company but been with the company for over a decade,
Wow.
and you get raises every so often.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, there's incentive. If you've been there for 5-6 years, you're obviously making more than the person that just got hired. But now
Hmm.
if you've been with the company for 8 years, don't you think they should calculate you not being a manager anymore and just like knock you down $1 an hour instead of 3? Like, I understand making less, not being in a management position. You're not handling money anymore. You don't have keys anymore. Your responsibility, you get paid for your level of responsibility for the business. That I 100% understand. That's capitalism. I don't disagree with capitalism. I disagree with how we use it to fuck people. You know what I mean? We use capitalism to fuck people, and that's just really that's there's supposed to be laws in place that prevent greed from taking over, but the problem is the
People make those laws,
yeah.
and people have greed.
And
So,
yes, and to be in a position to make those laws, you make a lot of money because
yep.
now you have a lot of responsibility. So this is the vicious cycle of it, right? Now you have a lot of responsibility because you're now making laws. So you're obviously making a lot more money.
Hmm.
So greedy people or people who want money or want power are going to want to be in those positions because it's the same conversation we were having before. It's the people who were in power. People like power. Greedy people like power, right? So
I think any people like power, period.
yes, but now when you're in positions of power, people are going to try to line your pockets to make better decisions or to cut deals with you, do you favors.
Right.
It's not always so cut and dry as let me put it to you this way. I had a friend I have a friend who he pays me for private instruction for Kung Fu, and he's a client at the massage
Yeah.
therapy. So he's a good friend of mine, but he ends up giving me a lot of money every week,
Mhm.
and I have a hard time being a business owner, taking money from people. I always want to cut people deals, and
Yeah.
you can't. This
I
is
get
how I
you.
survive.
But also, you have a degree of skill, knowledge, and expertise that you've developed that people are paying you for. Like your work has value.
Yes. That being said, he at the same time was kind of giving me music theory lessons. Yet
Uh-huh.
I couldn't afford to then give him a free private because I need the money to pay my bills and to survive.
Yeah.
So I stopped practicing with him
Mm.
because I didn't want to have to owe him something. So let's say you put that on a bigger scale and you have somebody that cuts you a favor. Now you owe them something. So somebody cuts you a big enough favor, gives you a big enough a big enough sum of money. Now do you not feel entitled to kind of sway your legislation in their favor?
Mm. Yeah, I see what you're saying. I think that's
Also, Congress is allowed to do insider trading. That's just something that people don't know. I just not have to doesn't have to do with anything that we're talking about, but it's equally as fucked up. Congress is allowed to do insider trading, and one good thing that Trump did is he's trying to eradicate that. So I hope he does before he leaves office that gets eradicated. Because if they have term limits and they can't do insider trading anymore, then you don't have people who are so rich that they fucking buy out their elections.
But you have people who are so rich because they don't pay taxes on their billions of dollars.
Oh yeah, they're gonna have to pay taxes too. Something with recent legislature that I read. Again, this is more like headline analysis and really diving deep into articles, which is something I'm gonna say it before I get accused of it because I get pissed off when people just like form their opinions on headlines. So this is admittedly something I need to research more. But there was talk of certain legislature that was going to make them pay taxes, make them have, I don't know about term limits. That's the thing I'm unsure of. But make them pay taxes, or at least a certain amount of taxes more than they have been, and would make insider trading for them be illegal, which I think would be fantastic because the stock market's gambling as it is, you know?
That is like another thing. So investing, one thing, there are a lot of books about investing and like women investing, or at least like cis women investing, and how much more confidence men have in playing the stock market or having investments as compared to women. Like they're typically more reserved or don't involve their finances in that way. But when you look at the facts, men and women have the same exact amount of knowledge. Like there's no significant difference in the amount of knowledge they have about investing, but men perceive themselves to have expertise and knowledge and skill, whereas women do not.
I think a lot of that comes from as you're developing, like we're talking about biology here, not self-definition, like biology. Like if you're talking about just biological male or biological female, your hormones are going to give you obvious tendencies towards, like aggression and drive. Like testosterone is going to give you natural aggression, natural drive, natural stuff like that. But at the same time, you're taught by society that like that's okay, and then women are taught that that's not okay.
Yes.
So you have these natural things that are going to bring out those tendencies that we define by biological sex. You know what I mean? The nurturing and the lovingness of women versus the aggression and the assertiveness of men. You're obviously going to like that. It is in a sense a part of nature, but at the same time, we're the most intelligent and sentient beings on the planet, and a lot of what we're capable of is based on our, again, mind over matter, what we think and how we believe and what we feel. I strongly believe that every gender, every sex should participate in some kind of physical challenge or martial art, because it will teach you how to overcome, and it will teach you how to be strong, and it will teach you how to push yourself beyond your limits, which is really something that we associate with men instead of women. So now you have this idea that men are the hunters. But if you look at like other species, men are rarely the hunters. Men are rarely the hunters. Only here, because men have a biological advantage. We're bigger, we're stronger, we have greater bone mass. I don't know if we have thicker skulls, but we're just physically more imposing. So in our species, we became the hunters because that was how we evolved, was that the males of our species evolved to have greater physical aptitude than women, than, you know, I shouldn't say women, but biological females, right? So we have these societal rules based on this. And then again, it falls into identity, because then you have men who aren't as strong as other men being emasculated. So now we have people setting these ideals up that bring all men up to this pedestal together, when really it's not like that. With people, you're kind of just like throwing shit at a wall and seeing what sticks. You know what I mean? Like, some people are going to fall off and some people are going to be good at certain things. You know what I mean?
Gender's fucked. Gender stereotypes are fucked.
It's, you know what I mean? Like, I am very much a straight male. You know what I mean? I am very much a cis male. That's just who I am. And I'm not going to sit here and say that like I've never questioned. Of course I've questioned, you know, and,
as everyone should.
You know, I had lots of thoughts like that when I was in high school. Like, am I? Do I feel this certain way? That made me feel a certain way, and I'm uncomfortable with that. Does that mean this? You know what I mean? Or even the ideology of like, I love my friends and I want to hug my friends. I want to hug my friends and I want to say I love you to my friends, and I do that now. And there's no harm in it. Every time I get off the phone with my friend Ryan, it's like, love you, dude. See you later. Bye. You know what I mean? Like, love you. Like, every time we talk to each other, we tell each other that we love each other, because we do. He's a brother from another mother. He's somebody, he's family to me. He's somebody who I love and care for. So of course we only have one life to live. So let the people that you love know.
Let them know.
Love them.
Yes.
Why is that gay? And even then, what's wrong? You know, and even then, that's the way that I grew up, with the term gay being negative. Yeah. You know?
And meaning just emasculating.
Right.
Not just gay.
So then the whole point of the whole point that I'm bringing up is you have this biological, this biological duality between, you know, biological male and biological female. That's also, again, perceived, because you have different levels of physical aptitude. Different levels of physical aptitude depending on the individual. You know, I mean, like, I used to be fat and weak, and now I'm not anymore because I've trained. Like, it's all about what you push yourself to be. So really, it's about mental capacity rather than physical aptitude, because you can do and be whatever it is. Unless you're born with a disability or have some kind of, you know, like gratuitous injury, you know, like grave injury or whatever, like, you know, you have fused discs in your, but you know why in that case. It's not emasculating at that point. Like, you know, like, if you have a bad back, you have a bad back. You just have to deal with it, you know, like.
But even still, people with physical disabilities are perceived and treated as if they're not performing or like adhering to their gender well enough. Like, that's why people with disabilities are so frequently, if not always, thought about as asexual. Like,
right. I never even thought of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, you're not a human being. Like, you don't fuck. Like, you don't have desire. But that's true. That's how we think about, or how we're socialized to think about people with disabilities, because we don't see them as desirable, and we don't see them, because we don't see them as desirable, we don't see them as having any desire or participating.
Right. Or being capable.
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
When,
like,
again, you're talking about the machine of your body telling you that you need to do stuff. Like, yeah, I say this like in every episode now, but like, all you are is this weird gelatinous squid thing that's driving this meat machine.
Yes.
And
that's my gender identity, by the way. It's like amorphous blob. That's my gender identity.
That's all we are. That's all we are.
Yes.
If you remove your central nervous system and put it next to mine, the only difference is going to be the length of my spinal cord, because I'm taller than you.
Yeah.
That's going to be the only difference. Everything else will be exactly the same. And that's all you really are. The only difference is your brain is giving you certain feelings because your body is sending it certain hormonal signals. So that's the issue with puberty, is because you have to now sort these new feelings out in your developing body that you have never experienced before, and you have to make sense of it all. And this change. And then now, you know, I want to one day be able to say you used to have to deal with, but you have to deal with the shame of sex.
Yes.
You know, and then you want to have it. And you want to have it a lot younger than people want to talk about you wanted to have it. You know? I was doing shit young. You know what I mean?
That's actually very normal.
Yeah. But we're taught that it's not. We're taught that it's not.
Which is garbage. Like, infants masturbate. Infants masturbate. Like, this is a thing that little children do.
Oh, yeah. I used to get in trouble for riding my hand when I was a little kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and it's just like, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I was 5. Like,
Yeah,
you know?
it is
and
fascinating.
I would get shamed for it. And
So-
it's like, then I would feel bad about it, you know?
I find this so interesting. Parents are so excited about all areas of their children's development except for their sexual development.
Mm-hmm.
What the fuck is that? Shouldn't you be happy that your kid is like experiencing pleasure or exploring pleasure in consensual ways? Like, shouldn't you teach them how, like, not to just kiss their friend without asking, but like, if kids are expressing sexual urges at a young age, like, tell them how to do that appropriately rather than
teach them about it.
Right.
Yeah. Because you know what doesn't work? Abstinence. Because you know what people are going to do? They're going to fuck.
Yeah, without condoms.
Yeah, exactly.
And without asking.
It's funny. Yeah, it's funny. I was listening to an episode of the Joe Rogan podcast, and he was talking about how when he was a kid, it was like, it wasn't until he was already having sex that his dad sat him down, or or whoever, and was like, you know, if you're gonna have sex, use a condom. He's like, if I've been.
Yeah.
And like, what's a condom? Because we're talking the 80s, you know what I mean? So it's like, of course, now you have the education in schools because we had it in health.
Maybe,
yeah, I know. We were lucky enough to have kind of some of it.
Yeah.
I remember our education, not that I like paid attention or like wasn't smoking pot every day, but like, not it, you know, it was something along the lines of like, you should abstain, but if you don't, here's what you do. But like, definitely don't do it. But like, if you do, use these. But like, please don't do it. But like, if you do, you know what I mean?
Don't.
Yeah, if you do, don't. And if you do, feel bad about it. And Jesus is watching. So I grew up in the church. And for people that don't know, I grew up in the church and then left the church when my grandfather died and was an atheist, and then started doing like too many drugs in high school, and then went with a good friend of ours to a youth group and was back and forth with this youth group for a long time. And I had a lot of conflicting ideologies because I would be hanging out with this group of people who you had plenty of involvement, we'll say, with, that would just fucking shame you for having sex with your girlfriend. Like, and then you had like, every group has a leader, and then you had the leader of this group being like, you know, we don't even like hang out in the bedroom together because the temptation will be too big, and we want to wait till we're married. And it's like, you know what? Good for you for respecting your belief system and wanting to wait till you're married. But at the same time, like, that book was written by people. Same as the laws. It was written by fucking people. And you don't read history, because how much of the Bible was thrown away during the Spanish Inquisition? Don't they remember that things like we had and we talk about the Spanish Inquisition now as a tragedy, but then it was like the church was doing this great thing and just getting rid of Jews. You know what I mean? Like it's like good for the church getting rid of these Jews. You know what I mean? Like, fuck them, get rid of them. They don't believe in Jesus, so like, better burn them alive. You know, like, and that people were just like fucking okay with that. You know, we live in America, the same place where the Salem witch trials happened. Like, we pay attention to history and then base our belief systems off of, like, I don't know, evidence. So like what you know what kids want to do? What they're not supposed to.
Yes.
So not only are they going to be having sex, but they're going to be like looking for ways to do it more fucked up. Like, if you just give them the permission slip to do things safely, they'll probably
do it safely.
If you just are honest with them and have the uncomfortable conversations, like, admit it to yourself. You have to look at your baby and say, one day this baby is going to fuck One day this baby is going to have sex with somebody, and we need to make sure that as they're coming up and developing, that when they don't make that decision to have sex until they're mature enough to handle the consequences of their actions. That's really what it all comes down to. Because if you have a 13-year-old that accidentally gets pregnant because they had sex with their boyfriend or girlfriend or them friend or whatever it is, you know what I mean? Like, if you get pregnant or you catch something, those are the consequences of your actions. You need to be emotionally mature enough to handle that decision. And that's really where the whole abstinence until a certain age thing should be talked about, I feel like. But it's going to happen. So just teach them healthy practices leading up to that, you know?
I think one way to get at what you're talking about is like teaching young people about developing a sex life with themselves, if that's something that they want, and how that's not shameful and a great source of pleasure and satisfaction and self-knowledge. Like,
feel free to elaborate on that.
Like, what are the there's no consequences of masturbating, period. True. Like, there are no negative consequences of masturbating.
Well, I mean, clean up, but
I mean, the only consequence that exists is societal, which is perceived embarrassment. Like, if someone knew or your parents caught you or something, like, it doesn't have to be embarrassing. And it's a wonderful way to not only like have a good time, but like explore your sexuality and your sensuality and learn about what pleasure is for you. So when you're ready to have sex with another person or have a partnered sexuality, like, you might already know what you like. We could talk about that we could talk about sex forever.
That's
forever
okay.
And ever.
That's fine. This is a long form conversation podcast. Talk as long as you want to.
You did ask me about coming out, and
yes.
I didn't want to drop that. Okay, that's on my mind. Another thing that you had mentioned about people transitioning with hormones before they're 18, I wanted to address, if that's okay.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, like, again, I'm a person that's not ashamed of my opinions, and also not afraid of being wrong. You know what I mean? So,
and I know that about you.
Yeah.
I think that I understand completely your argument that we shouldn't really be messing with brain chemistry before a person's brain is fully developed. I hear you. And when someone who is trans or non-binary and wants to pursue hormone replacement or hormone therapy, it's very likely that they're struggling with mental illnesses that are changing their brain chemistry anyway, and that by taking hormones that affirm their gender identity would keep those other hormones from harmfully changing their nervous system. So, like, for example, people who are trans are more likely to be anxious and depressed, and that really fucks with your fight or flight system, your cortisone response, or cortisol response. And when fucked with long enough, you're more likely to have anxious reactions and basically have a higher level of cortisol in your system at all times, which is really detrimental for your immune system and your mental health.
So is what you're saying kind of like, so let's say I'm a trans person.
Yeah.
And I'm 14. Okay.
Yeah.
And I am intelligent and aware that there is something out there that could make me who I feel like I am inside.
Yes.
And the fact that I'm not allowed to take it is going to ramp up my anxiety and my cortisol levels so much that I am going to be worse than if you just let me take it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So not only that there is something out there that could help you and you can't take it, but like the fact that you are exposed to discrimination every day about who you are, or forced to live in a body that does not affirm who you are, and go through puberty where even more of your bodily functions are creating a sense of dysphoria, like that distress will likely land you in a worse place than you would be if you had access to hormone therapy when you were younger.
Interesting. I mean, like, I never really think about teenagers, because I remember when I was a teenager, I feel like, you know, like I made the decision when I was in high school to not take my ADHD medication because I already dealt with suicidal thoughts, and I didn't want, and that was one of the risks. And I said, you know what, I'm already dealing with this, and I
Yeah.
don't want, I don't want to go off the deep end with my depression. And, but they didn't want to put me on antidepressants. I was just a kid. You know what I mean? So whatever. I'm glad that I'm not on anything now. You know, for me personally, not saying anything about anybody that has to take anything, but my discomfort with that. I mean, like, you're obviously already in puberty when you're in your teens. What if you're like 8? Is there anything with people putting people on medication when they're that young? Is that even happening, or is that just a fear that people have?
So I've only ever been involved in starting people on hormone replacement therapy at 18 or older.
Okay.
So I really don't have the experience with that. And I'm sure that that kind of assessment is much more nuanced, because there are biological consequences to transitioning. Like, it will have an impact on your ability to, if you're transitioning female to male, like, and if you want to have children, you're going to have to freeze your eggs. You're going to have to freeze your eggs and use those later with a surrogate.
And that costs money.
Yes, that is an investment.
A lot of money to keep those eggs frozen. It's money every month.
So when someone is thinking about transitioning medically, they really have to think about their future. And those are very big conversations for young people. I don't think that means they're incapable of making decisions. I think that that's up to parents,
and that they should
their children to decide together.
And this is one of the things that really infuriates me when it comes to the inequality of income in this country, and the I don't have health care right now, you know, and this isn't even about me. Like, I consider myself very lucky, because I know that I have a support system, and that if something were to ever happen to me, there would be family and people that would come and help and reach out. And that if I needed the money, that I'm lucky enough to have enough people who I love, who love me back, that would be there for me. You know, I'm trusting and having the faith that in the instance of an emergency that would happen, while also trying to be safe enough right now in this interim where I'm trying to afford my own healthcare, and it's just not happening. You know, that being said, even when I can afford my own healthcare system, mental health, dental, vision, all that stuff is not included. So why is healthcare not all inclusive? And also, you have school psychologists that, how many schools even have a psychologist, and how many kids actually have access to that one psychologist? And then you have the burden of being that psychologist that, like, has 4,000 kids that they need to talk to. You know, there aren't enough days in the year to see all those kids.
No,
so,
certainly not.
You know what I mean? So now you need a team. You need, excuse me, you need a team. You need access. You need finance. So the government suddenly, this is a point I was trying to make earlier, we're freeloaders because the government suddenly had the ability to give us $600 a month in the event of a pandemic. But, like, you couldn't have done that the whole time. Like, we can't.
No, because they'd rather buy guns.
That's what Andrew Young was talking about. He's like, if we just reallocate certain funds, the fuck does, like, we have the National Guard for a reason. They're supposed to be the ones that come in with tanks. I was saying to Blake, my brother, the other day, I was like, our national defense and policing should work like Grand Theft Auto. And he's like, what are you talking about? I was like, okay, you commit a crime. Hold on. Buckle your seatbelt, right? I'm taking you for a ride. So you commit a crime. 1 star. What happened at 1 star in GTA? For anybody who played, they already know. The regular police come at you in their patrol car with their pistols and their bulletproof vests. Fine. That's normal. That's normal policing. That's whatever. Level 2, then the SWAT teams get called in, which was like another level. Now, we don't really need those because then you have in the game, I think level 3 was the National Guard and level 4 was the FBI or some shit. And then level 5 was the Army came after you. So it's like, think about that though. Think about all the different branches that they called in to that. And that was just like how it worked in the game developer's brain. But that's not how it works in reality. Like you have the same police force that are in those patrol cars that then go and suit up in fucking suits of armor and come at you with grenade launchers and rubber bullets and riot shields and, you know, tanks and military vehicles. And then you have the National Guard that has more tanks and more.
Yeah.
And they don't, the thing is they supply the police force with all the non-lethal means, when really maybe the police force should focus on the community level, and then we can just use the National Guard for like what they're supposed to be used for, instead of sitting them in a base, you know, paying tax dollars for them to sit in a base and just fucking wait for the ability to shoot citizens.
Yeah.
Because
yeah,
we only bring them out when it's time to use real guns. We only bring them out when it's time to actually blast people in the head. Give the National Guard the rubber bullets. Teach them about riot control instead of letting the police, who are supposed to affect people on a community level, you know what I mean?
Well, that's not what the police are trained to do.
No.
But the police are expected to respond to so many disparate kinds of situations. Mental health crises, like somebody who is suicidal or somebody who is having, you know, delusions and hallucinations running naked through the street. They respond to a cat in a tree. They respond to like a triple homicide. Like they respond to so many different things, and they are not burn it all to the ground. Burn it all to the ground and start over. I'm an abolitionist in this person. In this,
a good friend of mine who is a training brother of mine, and a caveat, not a caveat, I don't know if that's the way to use that word, but a footnote about my school. We have a trans student who came out in the middle of training and then took the break to transition and get top surgery and then come back, and, you know, no one thought shit about it. No one said anything about it. It's not, you know, people think martial arts schools and they think that everybody's right-wing bigot nuts, and that's really not the case.
like, I never had that.
Very, very loving, and I hear it a lot.
Okay.
It's a very loving and inclusive atmosphere.
Yeah.
And you know, he came out and we were like, we know. You know what I mean? We were like, God, it's about time. You know, like finally, thank you. You know what I mean? Like, stop hiding, be who you are. And I'm so proud of him being who he is. You know, like that's really what it was. It was more of a sense of pride. That being said, this gentleman who I train with is a New York City police officer. And, you know, I never knew any cops personally before him. And we talk a lot. And we talk to each other, you know, I haven't messaged him in a while, but we talk every couple of days. And I'm asking him, you know, especially with everything going on and all this stuff going on with police, here's this person who I know personally, who I care about and who I know is a good person. So I'm like, how you handling everything? What's going on? And he would talk to me about like, dude, we just want to fucking support our families. He's like, I don't make enough. He's like, you know how many fucking cops right now want to quit? And we can't, and we fucking can't. He's like, I can't quit. I cannot quit the force. I can't afford to quit. I can't afford to quit my job. He goes, you know how many people in my unit are looking at jobs upstate, becoming state patrolmen, just want to work on the highway and give speeding tickets and fucking hang out in their cars because they're done. You know what I mean? He's talking about just coming on it. Like, I have 1,500 hours of training to be a massage therapist, and some police officers, I don't know what it is in the city, have like 850, I think. So you can carry a gun and shoot somebody in the fucking head, and I'm rubbing people's backs and trying to make sure I don't rub the wrong way and burst a vein. You know what I mean? Like, you know, like I have to have more training than you, and I don't have a gun. You know what I mean? Like, of course, I could seriously damage somebody if I don't know what I'm doing, but like, I don't have a gun. So
You could seriously damage somebody if you do know what you're doing and if you don't know what you're doing when you have a gun. So
Yeah, at 150%. So like, but nevertheless, you know, he's just immune to certain shit. Like,
yeah.
he's like, oh yeah, he's like, my first year, he was like, I was in the thick of it. Like, they make you do the grunt work. He's a police officer cleaning up after a subway suicide. So
Ugh,
when you get
that
hit,
is
when you get hit by a subway train, you explode. So, you know, he's like looking with a flashlight. Oh, there's his hand, puts his hand in a bag. There's part of his leg, puts part of his leg in a bag. There's, you know, half of his skull. My friend's old business partner, his father is the chief, one of the chief, or a sheriff or something like that for Nassau Police Department. And he came home one day and he takes his boots off. He comes home carrying his boots or some shit like that. I'm going to tell the story as if I know exactly what happened. But like, you know, he comes in carrying his boots and he puts them in the sink and he goes, kids, come over here. And he starts spraying out the bottom of his boots. And he goes, you see what's running into the sink right now? And they go, no, what's that? He goes, it's brain. And then he picks out a piece of bone from the bottom of his shoe. He goes, this is skull. And he goes, this is why you're never to buy a motorcycle.
mm,
So this is the kind of shit that police officers see on a daily basis.
yeah.
Meanwhile, we talk about military that are over in Afghanistan and they see people blow up and then go home immediately after and are fucked up
Yeah.
for the rest of their lives. But these people do this day in and
Every
day out,
day.
every fucking day. And you're going to expect them to not have a negative viewpoint of the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not even so much that we need to, like, in my personal opinion, because burning it down and building it back up sounds really nice, not tremendously practical, because you have the system in place and we can't just dissolve it entirely because it has a job to do. What we can do is reallocate certain funds, take the police
Yes.
officers' tanks away. You know what I mean? Like, fucking, they don't need, like I said, like, give it to the National Guard, who we're already paying taxes for. Have them come out in these situations when we need them to come out, and have it not be to shoot people in the head and have, like, you know, everyone's afraid of another Tiananmen Square happening in America.
Yeah, when I
Like,
say abolish police, I imagine that whatever structures are built afterwards, there's going to be one that functions in the way that we ideally want and need police to function.
we need
And
more mental health professionals, and we need more mental health care for our everybody.
there you go.
For our everyone. People wonder, like, oh, you know, like, that's the new thing, like everyone's becoming nurses or psychologists, and it's like, because we need it. We need it desperately. We need it desperately. Like, nurses are the ones that do all the procedures in the hospitals because the doctors are too busy with their clipboards. The doctors make all the decisions, and the nurses are the ones that do. Which is why they get paid so much, and or they should, and which is why they're so revered now, and when they should be. You know, like, nurses are some of the most important factors in our healthcare system, and and mental health is just as important. And you know, we talk too much about the loony bin, too much about if you're crazy, you're wrong or different, or, you know, somehow less than if you have some kind of mental deficiency or mental issue, or something you need to, even just something you need to heal from, or something traumatic that happened to you that you need to then process. You know, we're fragile, soft beings. We're loving and caring. We're supposed to be feeling. We're supposed to be thinking and processing. And sometimes you need the help in this confusing and often very dark and evil world. You need somebody to help that. And when your job is to face that evil every single day, and when you don't know if the video, because I've seen video footage of cops that go to issue a ticket and they get shot. You know what I mean? Like, they just go to knock on the window and say, like, you know how fast you were going, and they get shot because the guy has something in the car he doesn't want to get caught for. So every time a cop gets out of his car, that's what they're worried about. Is this going to be the time? Is this going to be the moment? Is this going to be the person that turns on me? Is this going to, you know, like, is this just somebody who's late for work, or are they running away from something? Is there a body in the trunk? Is there a gun in the car? Is there drugs in the car? You know, and if there are drugs in the car, what are they going to do to protect those drugs? You know, like, there's so much to think about that you can't just write everybody off. And then it's also at the individual level. We're talking about individuals here, which is why I brought up my friend in the first place, because he's like, you know, we're talking about city cops and all the fucking awful things that they're doing. And he's like, I fucking hate those people. He's like, when we had people coming up like that, like he would tell me like when they were being the precinct, if there was anybody who acted in the way that they were talking about, at least in their unit, they would pull a prank on them. They would take all their shit out of their desk and their locker and they would put it on a subway car and let it just ride around the subway and then force that officer to go find their shit to just like, you know what I mean? Because they couldn't go at a higher level. So they would take it the way that you kind of do in high school, where the one group stands up against a bully, you know?
Is that not like shaming and also problematic?
It's 100% problematic. It's not the way that we should be handling things at all. But it's not to, it's also to mention that like I bring it up not as the right way to handle things, but to show that, yeah, there are cops that don't agree with people treating other people in that way, and that they themselves need to be educated further and then also be forced to see a mental health care professional at least monthly, you know, at least monthly for a check-in, you know?
I hear what you're
Some kind
saying.
of evaluation.
I used to be part of assessing people who were trying to join the police academy.
Mm-hmm.
That is not a very intense assessment.
And it should be.
Yeah. It should be much more intense.
In what way? In what way? Like, what would you have to do?
We basically had to administer some very low level intelligence testing. I think they did like a personality test and we asked them some questions around power.
What the fuck is a personality test though? Like, what is that even? Is that accurate?
It's
I mean, even the fact that you have to say it that way, it's like,
I don't do a lot of assessment period in my practice, like
you mean like generalized assessment?
I do generalized assessment, but I'm not like doing neurological assessment or neuropsychological assessment or even personality assessment, like with tests and things. More like questionnaires.
But I mean, like, what is a personality assessment like that? I'm not.
It's supposed to assess like people's core worldviews or like how they perceive things from certain lenses. Like what is their, if someone's personality were like a pair of sunglasses and like I tend to see the world through this kind of lens, we're trying to figure out like what color are the glasses.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that makes sense. And then see if they're like inherently whatever, but like you said, it's not that stringent. So like what's entailed in that vetting process?
So what I did, I didn't interpret the other assessments that they were doing, but I administered essentially like a reading comprehension test assessment and asked them a few questions about why they wanted to be in the police academy and try to assess like basically why do you want to have a gun?
Yeah.
Or like why do you want to be a police officer? But I was like I didn't really know what I was doing. Like I was in training and this was like an adjunct thing that I could participate in, not something that I was trained to do necessarily.
So you were still a student at the time?
Yeah. And like, that's how you learn, but also that seemed like looking back on it, like, I don't know that I should have been the one to do that because I didn't know what I was really looking out for.
Yeah, I mean, like you can observe or maybe be an assistant to the psychologist who's doing the exams, but being the one making the decisions or giving the professional assessment when you're still a student seems a little irresponsible, you know?
So I think that depends on what the assessment is or what it is you're doing. Like, we always had supervision, and this is how it's like an apprenticeship. Like, you do the work, but you have a supervisor.
Okay. That's basically okay.
Yeah. So it's not like irresponsible in that way, but even for myself, like looking back on it, I don't know that I was given enough training or that I understood enough about the gravity of what I was doing to, like, if I were able to do it again, I would probably choose not to do it because I'm aware of my own limitations. Or ask way more questions about what I should be looking out for, tips and tricks for, you know, kind of uncovering what a person's motivation are that I didn't have at the time.
So do you think that there's a way that we could, in a sense, you know, you say abolish. So just abolish the current system that's in place. Maybe not take everybody's jobs away, but or you know, like, because there's differences in interpretation, and this is again going back to what we had said earlier about like language. You know, language is how we communicate, and it's super important. And I think people interpret things differently. Like when I hear the word abolish, the first thing that passes through my brain is dissolve the police force and start over with something new. And it's like, then what do we do with those people? You know, what do we do with those people? What do we do with how do we protect our individuals in our society? You know, and then we have what was that thing that just happened that turned into a tragedy where they tried to like create their own Chaz or whatever it was
In Seattle?
I think so, yeah. Didn't they like immediately put up borders and like wasn't there violence between groups and they tried to create this utopian society and it turned out being just as messed up as the one that we're in now, if not more so?
I don't know. I couldn't really speak to it.
Yeah, me either. It's just something that I had heard about. I was wondering if you knew about it. But I mean, like, you know, we tend to think that we can self-govern, and there's a lot of people who can't. And, you know, and this is a major shift in how we're being educated. And, you know, I don't think that cancel culture is a good way to go about it. I don't think that you know, protecting people from misinformation on your Facebook feed and like, you know, like flagging stuff and getting rid of stuff. I think we should be holding up people that know what they're talking about and having more conversations like this with professionals and with people who know what they're discussing and know what they're talking about, and really hear people out and listen, you know? I mean, there's such a, you know, back in the day when there was something important going on in the country, the TV would shut down. The only thing that would be on TV would be the breaking news. You know, it would be, we interrupt this, sorry, something's happened. So we interrupt this, you know, broadcast to bring you this message about XYZ. And now like you get like what, like a text on your phone that an emergency is happening, or even then sometimes not. Or then you open your phone and you have 4 different news articles and 2 say this and 2 say that. And it's about the same situation and they're completely different. You know, they're completely different. Ideologies, completely different articles, completely different opinions, completely different realities almost sometimes, you know, like even the way they talk about certain people. Like you look at a left article about Trump and he's this evil dude that wants to have sex with his daughter, and then you look at a right article and he's this hero who's saving the country, and it's like the truth is somewhere in the middle. The truth is always much more gray than we want to make it out to be. So how do we go about that? And a big part of it is, another one of the reasons I was excited to have you on, is to talk about how we deal with this major shift as well in the LGBTQ community and acceptance, and like how we can alter people's viewpoints so that like it's okay that I'm who I am, and it's okay that you're who you are, and it's okay that they're who they are, and it doesn't make a difference. You know, it shouldn't make a difference. So let's talk about you coming out, because we wanted to discuss that, and now we've been trying to get back to that for like an hour. So let's get back to that, because that was a decision that I, you know, growing up, you know, I didn't really see that coming, because you're very feminine. Or and I didn't see that coming at all. You know, you were always with dudes. Never really,
Yep.
I never really heard anything about that from you. And then,
Yeah.
you know, so how did that? What was stewing inside you that made you make the decision to come out as? Let me make sure I'm correct. Queer, correct?
Yes. Yeah. So you're right. I came out very late in life. I came out when I was in grad school. I was like 22-ish, 23-ish. So a lot of that, I totally see why it was surprising to you and my other friends, because I was very sexual as a teen and like young adult. And my sexuality was, I talked about it a lot, and it was always with men. And my gender presentation also is like very, very feminine. There was, I guess, a lot going on inside of me that now when I look back at it was so obviously gay, like so very, very queer, that I think society and what I understood about being gay, like I didn't feel gay enough to claim any sort of queer identity. So like all my life, I remember, take it back a second. Okay. When I was, you know how like there's this stereotype of like girls having sleepovers and like practicing kissing with their friends.
Oh yeah,
like,
but that's not gay at all. It's just like what girls do. Like, and it's okay for girls to do it, but like guys
Sure.
shouldn't do that because then you're gay.
Sure.
You know?
I have never had a sleepover like that. And I always wanted to, but I was like too nervous about being perceived as like the person at the sleepover who was like gay and like being ostracized. So that's never been something that I approached. Like there was all of this internalized homophobia in me that like if I were to express any of my queer urges or my queer desires, that like none of my female friends would like me anymore. And I was so invested in my female friendships. Like I also went to Girl Scout camp when I was a preteen, and there I learned that I was really good at giving people massages, girls massages, and I really loved doing it. And I was like always wanting other girls to let me give them massages, but I didn't want to be the creep who just like touched them without asking. So here I am like sitting in quiet desperation, wanting all of my female friends to let me touch them. And like, how is that not so obviously gay? But like, again, something that I didn't voice. And all of my, I always had really intense female friendships that looking back on them, and even my female friendships now, like they always involve some element of like a crush or a romantic or sexual attraction.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's just something that I feel for women or for like non-binary feminine people. Like I just, like I want to be you and I want to be with you. Mm-hmm. And I remember I had a very close and intimate friendship with someone that we went to high school with. And I had such a crush on her. I
almost like guessed the name out loud. That would have been so stupid.
It probably isn't.
Yeah.
It's no one that I was friends with for a really long time.
Yeah.
But I had such a crush on her, and like she was sort of flirtatious with me. And one Passover, she came to Passover at my house. And
which Passover is a party.
Hell yeah. So she came to Passover at my house and she's like, oh, I need to use the phone. So I'm like, okay, let me take you to my bedroom and we'll use the phone. And like, we were drunk because, you know, at Passover at my house, at any Passover, you're supposed to drink, but like at Passover at my house, you really drink a lot of wine. So she came into the bedroom and like, she used the phone and then we like kissed. And it was my first gay kiss. It's my first kiss with a girl, and I was so excited and like so nervous because I was like in my parents' house and like everyone was out there, and I thought that they would be worried about where we went, or like somehow knew that we were doing something gay and that it would be bad or something. But then we never kissed again, and I was so sad. I was so sad. And then she, like, basically my other really close friend and her started being best friends, and I was so jealous.
How old were you?
Sophomore?
Yeah.
14, 15? Yeah. I'll tell you off air who it was.
Yeah, there's plenty that we'll talk about after that's over that we couldn't.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I mean, like there's a lot of instances like that, you know, and boys growing up together too have a lot of those, you know, like those same like kinds of like sleepovers, like boys growing up together, you watch porn together.
Yeah, totally.
You 100%, like, and you know, like, I know lots of people who would listen to this and be like, that's fucking weird, you know, or even like we talked about before with what is it, with parents and their children not accepting the fact that one day that's going to happen with them, you know what I mean? Like they're uncomfortable discussing and coming up with that, but like that's just something. And then, like, you know, it's like, is it or is it not, or is it just nothing? Is it nothing? Is it just normal experimentation? Is it just a nothing instance? So this is something else that, you know, we put so much definition on and talk about what's important based on our preconceived notions and the ideals that our parents taught us, and it might not necessarily be reality. So and even then, so now this is something that you harbored secretly then for what, like 8 years?
Probably since puberty until 10 years. Let's say 10 years.
Okay.
Well, okay. So more of this story. Kissed this girl, loved it, wanted more, never happened, sad. Go to college, throughout all of this, really exploring my sexuality and having sex with a lot of men, like a lot of them, and enjoying myself too. Like, I have always also been attracted to men. So I'm in undergrad. I have a boyfriend. He lives across the country, and the school that I'm going to as a freshman has this party at the end of every year where it's 3 days long. Everyone does a ton of drugs, and like part of it is that you like make out with everyone else.
Is this upstate? Is this where I was?
No, this was Reed College in Oregon.
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay.
Yes.
My brain's starting to make connections now. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Yeah.
So I asked him, hey, is it cool if like I do this thing with my friends who are there? Like, can I do that? And he was like, yeah, fine. No big deal. So then just like, that was like the next queer thing that I ever experienced as a freshman and sophomore in college. Was like,
because I'm assuming it was just kind of like everybody that was around.
Yes, everybody just kissing everybody.
Female or in between, yeah.
Exactly, like everyone.
So now Reed.
Everyone.
So now Oregon at the time, because you're 30 now.
I turned 30 on the 8th, on September 8th.
September 8th, yeah. So
yes.
Happy soon birthday.
Thank you.
It's actually Jen's 35th today. So
happy birthday, Jen.
Yeah, so to give people some construct of time. So I'm 31 now. You're 29, turning 30, and we're talking about you coming out, 7-8 years ago, and then harboring this for that long. So now if you go back in time again, so now you're 18, 19. I'm like 20, 21. This is when Brooklyn was really in the height of not being the projects anymore and becoming the progressive kind of like, hippie hipster counterculture kind of place that and Soho have become. And this was also happening in Oregon. This is when the show Portlandia was at its height.
Yes.
So Portlandia is at its height. The 90s are alive in Portland. So really you have, again, this hipster progressive left movement.
Yeah.
And like kind of like free love, open experimentation with drugs, different ideologies of what psychedelics are and stuff like that. And this is all this is the height of this is happening while you're now at the height, like it all,
in my emerging adulthood, yes.
and it all starts in university. So you're at like the
Yes.
fucking epicenter. So
Yeah.
again, so just so people have some context.
And for context, the school that I was going to, it's called Reed College, and its motto is atheism, communism, free love. So, so that's like on the
it's not funny, but it's hilarious. You know,
yes,
what I
that's
mean?
on the school crest: atheism, communism, free love. So that's the kind of place I was going to school. And even then, I was still like this little closeted queer person.
Because
and
you
it
have
wasn't.
to, because it doesn't extend. It's not just in your little bubble. You know what I mean? Like coming out and saying shit like that, it extends to fucking everyone you know, and then you
Yeah.
have to deal with the backlash from everyone,
Everyone
you
you
know.
know.
You need to be comfortable enough or confident enough in that decision to say it publicly to deal with the other shit that's going to come back from fucking everybody. While you might have 90% positive results, the 10% can be
Yeah.
what takes somebody and drives them off the deep end, you know.
I guess for me, it wasn't so much like thinking that other people, well, it was thinking that I would be sexually rejected and not having enough confidence in my attractiveness or my value as a partner to other women or non-binary people. Like, I think that worried me a lot about coming out, but also like not thinking that I was gay enough to count. Like I learned a lot about my value as a sexual partner to men by having a lot of sex with men, and like learned to value myself through that experience, which is not ideal. Wish I could have developed that kind of sexual self-confidence on my own, and had I lived in a different culture, I might have, or had I understood how culture works in shaping women's sexualities, I might have also. But I didn't. So I learned about myself through sex with men. And then again, like thought of myself as not an attractive or desired choice by women. But when I was in or late undergrad and early graduate school, I had another partner who we were monogamous for a long time, a male partner. We were monogamous for a really long time. And then it was a long distance relationship also, because I was in grad school in Pennsylvania, or in undergrad in upstate New York, and he lived on Long Island. So part of our relationship and maintaining our sexual relationship was sexting and sending each other like, this is heyday of Tumblr, so like porn gifs. And we were always looking at a lot of like lesbian porn and talking like, oh my God, she's so hot. And like, that was just our foreplay. Like that was fun for us. And I felt like I was able to look at women having sex and being intimate, and also share that interest of mine with this partner. And that sexual interest evolved into me finally feeling able to be open about that with him, and like claim queerness as a part of me. Like, okay, like this is something that I'm genuinely interested in, and like I want to explore that. Like I want to have a relationship with you, and I want to explore that. And he was interested in group sex, so we decided to start having sex.
That guy is not interested in group sex.
Okay, after having the experience, group sex is like whatever. At least for me, it's whatever.
I feel like it's like a lot to pay attention to. I think I feel like I had crazier times when I was in high school than I did like later in life, and I think it's because like I kind of knew I didn't want to bother with it. Like I like paying. For me, it's about the connection with that individual.
Yes.
And like I've been promiscuous through my life, but I am also kind of a serial monogamous, because I even when relationships don't work out, I really just value having that like
Yeah.
it's better every time, you know?
Yeah.
It's better every
You
time.
learn someone's
But
body.
yeah, and like that for me has always kind of been like that's why I always end up in relationships, is because like I don't know how to like have good sex and not like then get to know the person, or I don't know how to like have good sex with the person without getting to know them first. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
Anytime I've hooked up with somebody, like once, it's been like fucking awful.
Bad.
I remember I had like the dream situation where you have a date with a beautiful girl that you met on Tinder or whatever it was, and you're so excited about it, and then you get into the car and you're smoking a cigarette after having a couple of drinks, and you're gonna go get food, and she goes, "No, take me someplace and fuck me," and I'm like, woohoo! And then it was awful. It was
Yeah.
so unbelievably like, we
Yeah.
get there, we get to the hotel room, I'm like, oh yeah, and then it was over, and I was like, that was terrible. That was really, really
Wow.
bad.
You even had a hotel room?
Yeah, dude. It was like the ultimate dream experience. Like,
Wow.
and like I hated it. It was terrible.
Yeah.
I would rather like be eating ice cream with my girlfriend, and then one thing leads to another, or like you don't have sex for 4 days because you're just not in the mood, and then all of a sudden you have it and it's amazing. You know
Yep.
what I mean? Like that's it's that for me is my drive. So like, but of course we have this like this societal like because it's naughty, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's naughty,
Right.
so you want it. So every guy wants to be with two girls, but like, do you really?
Yeah. So I've always been very much about exploring my sexuality in general. So there was part of me that like wanted threesomes because like I want to try that, but was scared because I was afraid of losing my partner. That like he would find that I'm not as desirable as he thought or something.
That's all
But there was,
ego. People deal with
yes,
that.
but
Yeah.
there was a part of me that was also like, I really want to have sex with women, and I'm afraid. I want to have sex with women. I don't feel safe with you having your own partners on your own time. So let's do it together. Like, let's have sex with women together. And then like a lot of my jealousy or anxiety or whatever will be irrelevant.
And I think we discussed that a lot at the time when it was going
Yeah,
on. Yeah.
totally. And I found that having sex with my partner with another person was not a big deal. I did not feel jealous. I can't say that I was particularly attracted to, I mean, they were hot, like they were beautiful people, but like, was I super excited about having threesomes with them after I did it the first time? Not really. Like, and we still had more threesomes. Like, I think I would have had a better time. So, okay, here's what I realized. All of the sex that I had with women, with my partner at the time, was under the male gaze. Like, I was never just with a woman or a non-binary person, just me and them. And that still has not happened. Even after that partner and I broke up, I went on OkCupid as like an openly queer person and like had sex with other couples, like with a man involved. And like, so I still haven't had a sexual relationship with a woman that was like just for us.
Right.
And I feel confident that like eventually that will be part of my life as my partner now and I negotiate when and how we might want to open up our relationship or allow for that to happen.
If there is a person that could have been like designed for you to be with, he's it. You know, like
Yeah, I love him.
me too. Me fucking too. I really do love him. Like he is the perfect person. Like it was you had told me about Ken, and then I met him, and I was like, oh yeah, all right. like this finally makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like everybody else was kind of a stretch. It was kind of like this. Like I feel like the partner in question. Not saying anything about him because again, I did like him a lot.
No, he's a lovely person.
He's a very, very lovely person. But just the two of you together, it was kind of like a square peg in a in a like kind of like carved out round hole. You know what I mean? Like it fit like almost, but you had to force it a little bit with a certain way. But like Ken is just so like open
Yeah.
and the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you have like the same ideologies. And you know, I think to speak on, because I'm sure people are going to listen and be like, oh, she was drunk making out with somebody in her bedroom at 14 at Passover at her parents' house. So let's talk a little bit about that for a second. And I just want to juxtapose my upbringing versus your upbringing. And it's nothing to say about any of our parents, mainly my parents, who are going to kind of like fall under the gun of this. Because again, it's programming and it's how you were brought up, and it is what it is. You know, my dad was never around, and we had my Catholic grandparents that did a lot of raising for me, and my Protestant born again Christian mother who, you know, was shamed her entire 20s for getting pregnant out of wedlock, and then me who went to a private Christian school who was shamed for being a product of wedlock. You know what I mean? Like, your family bringing you up was very open and inclusive. Your parents have always been progressive with their conversations and how they deal themselves in their relationship with sex.
Totally.
They've always been very open with how they have sex and how they deal with sex in their relationship, and have openly discussed it with people that they're me included, you know, people that they're close to, how, you know, just how they are. They've never hidden anything from you. They've never lied to you about anything. They've always been very
Well,
open.
they did until
Well, yeah,
until we were like in college.
I wasn't gonna bring that up. Like, you found
Yeah.
out, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You found a bunch of shit out, and they were like, guilty, you caught us. But at the same time, they brought you up without that shame. And there was also the ideology, like, if you're gonna drink and smoke pot, just fucking do it here, because you're gonna do it anyway.
Yes.
So if you're gonna do it, just do it around us, so I can tell you when you've had enough, so you can learn what your limits are.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then if you screw up, I'm already here to take care of you, instead of having to find you at the emergency room. And that taught you the responsibility to then never go off the deep end when you were out or in high school, you know?
I mean, that doesn't exclude me from having lied to my parents about things that I was doing.
Well, I mean, like, yeah, of course, everybody's going to do that. But at the same time, I think it gave you a little bit a better tool set to work with.
I think so. I think no matter what, I knew if like something got out of hand or I felt uncomfortable, I could ask my parents to take care of me. And they showed up for me like that in at least one situation. So like, they're good people. They're open, they're open-minded, they're supportive. And like, me not coming out until later, I don't think had anything to do with them not being accepting. Like, they're super accepting of me.
Oh no, I would never think that about them. That was never even a thought that crossed my mind. But again,
no.
Don't know
if
that.
anything, it's almost like knowing how open they are and like having the feelings I did. No, it's really just like, I didn't think I was gay enough. But like, no, I was super gay. I was just afraid.
And I think, were you with Ken already when you came out?
No, I think this was like, no, I was with my ex at the time.
Okay.
Yeah. And then it was like shortly before we I don't know. It was like around the time that we started having sex with women. Yeah. It must have been then. If not shortly after we broke up. But whatever. Like, that was a really important relationship for me. I think at the time I imagined that we fit very well, and then
I think we just grew in different directions.
Yes. And I realized that like we didn't have compatible lifestyles.
That too.
And that we didn't know how to argue. Like, we just sat in quiet disappointment with one another if we were upset and like didn't work on our problems. And
you gotta fight. You gotta fight.
And I fight so much, and it is so good. Like, he and I, we're two Virgos. Like, I don't know that you ascribe to astrology at all, but like,
Oh
we
no,
are.
I'm very much a Cancer, and she is very much a Leo, and I call her out on all her
Oh.
Leo bullshit. So, you know what I mean? And then she's like, "Stop being so sensitive, you fucking Cancer." You know what I mean? Like, oh, did you get your feelings hurt? You know, I'll get that from her, and I'll be like, oh, of course, you need to be the fucking queen. Like we have these ridiculous arguments, and then we get it all out there, and then it's over and done with. You know?
Yes.
You gotta fight. You're gonna
Yes.
fight. You gotta fight.
Ken and I are so the same in how we try to argue that it's laughable. Like, we in the past would get so in the weeds about semantics and about language that
Isn't
we
that
would
not
like,
what's happening in society too?
it is. It's a Virgo struggle. But like, I'm so grateful. We've been together 5 years. And actually, yesterday was our 1 year anniversary of being engaged.
Ooh, congratulations.
Yeah, our
Congratulations.
wedding planning is postponed due to COVID, but we've been engaged for a year.
Naturally.
Yes. But over 5 years, it has been such a journey in like learning another person. And Ken's a dad. His upbringing is similar in a lot of ways to yours. Like, he became a dad when he was 20, and he's turning 36 this year.
Oh wow. Oh, she's 16.
Oh,
Wow.
they. Lucy uses they, them pronouns. Lucy just turned 15. So maybe got pregnant when he was 20 and then had a kid when he was 21.
But still, like, that's huge. That's huge to have a 15-year-old, you know?
Yeah.
That's huge to
And
have a 15-year-old.
I know. It's pretty awesome. Like, I love being queer parent of a queer stepchild and like being a support. And I love everything about our relationship.
Well,
Ken is wonderful.
Yeah, that's a beautiful sentiment, you know. And I feel like, you know, you guys being so accepting like allows Lucy to be who they are. You know what I mean? Like it's very. Could you imagine if they had different parents? You know what I mean? It would be much more of a struggle, or it might be not that your situation is in any way wrong, but imagine, you know, if somebody did wait till they were 22, 23 to come out, it in certain cases can be very psychologically damaging.
Totally. And I'm just really grateful that in general, Lucy's generation is so much more accepting of queerness and of trans and non-binary identities than even mine was. Like, the fact that Lucy gets to be out at 15, like, how fucking cool is that? Like, how cool is that? That it's mind-blowing. And like, that doesn't mean that people who are...
It would have been ostracized, you know, like the whole ideology would have just been ostracized.
Yeah.
Or I'm sorry, the ideology was something that would ostracize the individual. This could be correct English.
Yeah.
You know, back when we were growing up.
And it doesn't mean that like that kind of discrimination doesn't exist, because it still certainly does. And there's so many more spaces for queer people to feel safe and accepted, and for their identities or our identities to be affirmed. So I'm so happy. I'm like so happy for me and for them and for every other like beautiful, amazing queer person, non-binary person, trans person. Yay us.
I mean, it's as much shit that's going on in the world right now, there is a lot of good and focus on, and like that is one of the good things. Like, of course, it's so beautiful that people are like being accepted for exactly who they are. You know, when you think about like, we still have laws in this country that allow you to you know, harm a homosexual person because of the Gay Panic Act. You know what I mean? Like, and
or not hire trans people because they're trans.
Right.
Yeah. Like, I also wasn't kidding about what I said earlier about amorphous blob being my gender identity.
Yeah.
Like 3 years ago, I started exploring or questioning my gender after, I think you know this, like I had been doing hair modeling for a friend for 4 or 5 years now. And one of the haircuts that they gave me was a bowl cut. And so I like basically had no hair. And it's not a way that I had ever experienced myself before. And I was kind of forced to reckon, like, okay, without the trapping of femininity that was my long hair, who am I? And I spent a lot of time reflecting on my past and realized, like, I'm sure you can attest to this, my style and my aesthetic has changed so much.
Oh yeah, dramatically,
And
dramatically.
it's changed, it would change like every couple years. Like maybe one year I was into like this emo aesthetic, maybe one year I was like goth, maybe one year I was, I don't know, vintage pinup, maybe another year some other shit. Like it was just always changing. And I realized that that kind of fluidity in my gender presentation is just part of who I am. Like, can you still hear me?
Yes, I can still hear you.
Oh, okay.
The computer is at 6%. It wasn't plugged in.
Oh,
Give me
shit.
1 second to grab a plug. Yeah.
Ooh, nice tiny shorts.
Thank you. They're not tiny. They were just written up. So listen. As all good things must come to an end, let us continue the point because my plug is nowhere to be found. Let's go until let's ride this baby until the wheels fall off. You know what I'm saying?
I can wrap it up real quick.
So
basically,
I don't want you to have to wrap it up real quick. I got like a good 10-15 minutes left, so just finish your point. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
It's fine.
I just wanted to see if the plug was out here.
Yeah, I don't have too much more to say, but like I reflected on my past and realized that my gender identity has always been tied to my gender presentation. So like I've always only felt as femme as the clothes that I put on or the makeup that I put on. And when stripped away of those things, I didn't feel like a woman. I didn't feel like anything. Like, I didn't feel like anything. I felt like an amorphous blob that like didn't have a gender.
And that was something you enjoyed about that was something that you identified with. Like,
yeah, that was something that I really discovered. Like, whoa, my gender presentation is a real choice. I can choose to do whatever I want, but like separate from it, my gender identity is really it's just been kind of handed to me, or like, it felt like I had been given a certain kind of toolbox to use, or like certain colors from like a crayon box to like paint myself with. And I was only using the ones in those in that box. But I realized like I didn't have to play with that box if I didn't want to. And even if I did, it didn't say anything essential about me. Like the core of me is separate from what I adorn it with.
So that being said, and it's hard for me as somebody who's never had to go through that to understand what it's like and how to be on the right side of history, I guess you could say, with how I handle situations and how I deal with. So if you could give a piece of advice for people like myself who have hard times I have to remind myself constantly, they. I have to constantly think about that. Is there a piece of advice you could give for people such as myself who are kind of in this sea of new terminology and new ways to treat certain individuals, and how we can kind of educate ourselves and make sure that we're using the right terminology and treating people appropriately to make it a more comfortable environment for people to come out in?
Yeah. Okay. So what you were doing, what you described is actually exactly what I would recommend. So you use use the pronouns or identifiers that people prefer or that they identify with.
Sorry, I got a cat swatting at me.
No worries. If you don't get it right, correct yourself and move on. Like, don't apologize profusely, because making it about yourself and be like, oh, I'm so sorry, like I got it wrong, I feel so bad. Like that's
right. That makes it about you.
That
right?
makes it about you. Like, don't do that. Don't be that person. If you hear other people misgendering someone, just say, no, it's this pronoun. Like, correct people on behalf of the person that you care about.
Right.
Yeah. Just say, like, no, they use they them pronouns. Like I did about Lucy.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
And if you don't know what someone's pronouns are, just use their name. Just use their name. It's gonna be hard to adjust your language, like you acknowledge, and it's not impossible. Like, yes, you will have to think for maybe 3 more seconds before something comes out of your mouth, but that courtesy is worth, like, literally that person's psychological well-being. And if you care about them, you will take the time to think about it for 3 seconds before you refer to them.
And we started this conversation talking about tribes, and we started this conversation talking about groups that we aspire to. And I made the point of, we live on the planet, dude. You know what I mean? Like, and yeah, we live on this planet together. So it's our responsibility to make sure that all of the people in it are being cared for. You know, it takes a village to raise one person. So of course we are all responsible for the people that are around us in our communities. So if we have somebody in our community that we could then make feel more accepted, it could be a more beneficial and productive member of society if we could just get over who they identify themselves as and realize that it has fucking nothing to do with, you know what I think a lot of it comes from? And this is another little point. I think men are uncomfortable feeling, you know, cis men or whatever, or however they identify, you know. I think certain straight guys are uncomfortable being sexually attracted to somebody who has transitioned and seeing femininity in them and then being attracted to it. So let's just shun it so that we can't even experience that at all, you know? And then another big part of it is, like, then they're forced to they themselves question who they are.
How essential is my masculinity or my heterosexuality? Like,
and it's not. Everybody is who they are. Everybody is who they are. Is any other caveats you might have on that phrase, or for anybody who might be coming out, any resources you think that they should reach out to?
Sure. So there was one thing another suggestion for people who are trying to be mindful of their trans friends or family members or community members. I like that with the example with your coworker, who actually is my godfather's
oh wow!
niece,
Yes, I
remember?
forgot about that. Yes,
Yeah.
You did tell me about that. Holy crap! I forgot about that. Okay, anyway, so strange connection. Your family.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, my family. I think it's fair to say, hey, I'm getting used to this. Like, there's some things in my language that might not feel affirming to you, and asking, like, if I were to say dude around you the way that I usually have, how would that feel? I think that kind of checking in is important, and it does not give you license to just use that language willy-nilly around them. If they've said, like, that does make me uncomfortable. Like,
so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say pause, and I'm going to go grab the plug, and you can say whatever you want. And this will be where, like, maybe I put an edit or something, but like 2 seconds, let me just go grab the plug and I'll be right back.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, so I'll just edit the cut. So continue.
Okay, so I think it's great to tell someone who you care about that's transitioning that there may be some pieces around language that are hard for you. And I think it can be hurtful and harmful to say, well, that's just how I say things, and like, that's just it. So like, give me grace because like, I'm just that way. Like, we all can grow, we all can learn. Like, the acknowledgement is more so, this is something that I have done for a long time. I want to be sensitive to your needs. I am going to try to do that. There may be times where I'm struggling. And if I am, don't hesitate to call me out, or I will be vigilant to correct myself.
Oh, yes. I'd like to think that that was how I presented it. At least that was what I was going for.
Yeah.
But there were also instances where like I said shit that like I didn't even know was offensive, and I,
Right.
you know, like I had no idea that the word tranny was bad.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that the word tranny was bad, and I used it. I forget the context. I don't remember what the fuck I was talking about. You know, but I remember saying it, and then Robin was like, "That's not enough." Like was fucking pissed at me for the rest of the
Yeah.
day, and then I
Yeah.
was like, "What'd I do?" You know, and I was like, "That's a bad." I didn't even know that was a bad word, and the whole store came down on me, and I was like, "I didn't know. I didn't
Well,
know." You know what I
I'm
mean?
glad that you learned, and I'm
Yeah.
sure that you would not say that again.
Oh no,
Because
absolutely not. I had
you're
no
a
fucking. I had no
considerate and
clue.
caring person.
Yeah, I had no clue. I didn't even realize. I thought I was just like using an adjective or yeah, I thought I was just using an adjective. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I didn't realize that it was something that is has a different kind of connotation. You know what I mean? Like, and then
Right.
I had to learn then that because that's the offensive word that people would use, and it just doesn't even you know, it doesn't identify what that individual is going through or who they are as an individual. You know, like tranny is just like a blanket term, you know,
Mm.
and it's just like I didn't realize why it was something that was offensive, and this is something that again, you know, like I feel very lucky to have had my first instances and first experiences with trans people in an environment where we were very accepting of one another.
Yeah. It
You know what
sounds
I
like
mean?
you were allowed to, you were given grace, even though you had made a misstep. And like,
Yes.
yes, people, you got the impression like that was the wrong thing to do. And they were still there for you as you learned and were growing.
And we got closer as time went
Yeah.
on. You know what I mean? You and I both know, like, we're really bad at keeping in touch with people.
Oh my God. So bad.
Like, I'm just so, like, not self-absorbed, but like, I'm building a business and a podcast
Yes.
at the same time. Like, you know, I've got a relationship, I've got a life. I also work out constantly, and I'm always training, so
Yeah.
it's like that's a long time, you know. So I'm sorry if I haven't reached out in a while, but I love you very much, you know what I mean? Like, and I really
Listen.
I value these people so much, even though I haven't really been very good at keeping in touch with them.
Mhm.
You know, Robin, Billy, to name a couple, Cassandra. These are all people from the store that I was very close with when I was working there, and obviously time has put distance between us.
Yeah.
And just, you know, people grow apart, and I haven't really kept in touch with anybody, and I've definitely learned a lot since I was at that store, and I've definitely had much more time to process my experiences and my conversations, and I was also going through a lot in my life at the time.
Mhm.
You know, I made some not great decisions. I was in
As we all do.
I made some not great decisions. I was doing some not great stuff with some not great people, and was in a not great relationship, and then had a not so great breakup. You know,
Mhm.
and I had to cope and deal with all and getting my black belt and doing all that stuff in school. You know, it was a lot. every time I do this, there's an animal here that's not on camera. Just so that everybody knows, it's been 2 different cats so far, and now it's a Shiba Inu. I'll just give you one of these so everybody can see.
Oh,
Here's
I saw
Eva.
that dog running around in the back before.
This dog?
Yeah, in like
Yeah.
that little patch of near the fence behind you.
Yeah. So there's this. I love animals, you know, and I can't not pay attention to them when they come up to me.
Yeah, of course.
But so like I was saying, I'm just so blessed to have known those people, and even though I haven't kept in touch with them, I still love and value them very much, and I really, really am so. I just want to take the public forum to thank and appreciate them for the education that they provided to me in how to be me while also protecting them. You know what I mean? And I think it's so important. As I'm a very confident, strong-willed, and loud individual. I am not afraid of anybody. I am not afraid of anybody's opinions. I will tell you to go fuck yourself, and if you bring it there, I'll bring it right back. You know what I mean? So like I'm not afraid of any of that, and I think it's important for people with that level of confidence and level of assertion to then be the protectors of people who may not necessarily have the ability to stand up for themselves. And in a lot of cases, you're going to have people from all walks and all communities that need protection of everybody and need to feel included. So if there's somebody from the cis white male community who's on their side, it could then bring those groups together. You know what I mean? Because you're immediately viewed, it's you're put in a box, and you have to prove that you're not the person from that box. You know what I mean? You have to then you're guilty until proven innocent.
Yeah.
And a lot of times your mind, you need to be educated, and a lot of people need to be made aware that what they were taught when they were growing up is harmful. Not even just wrong, but it's harmful. You're hurting people.
Yes.
You're hurting individuals by not appreciating who they are. Could you imagine if somebody said to me, "You're not Italian because you have red hair and you're from New York and not Italy"? I'd be like, "Go fuck yourself." You know what I mean? Like, I had the most guinea fucking upbringing. Like, I make the best gravy. Like, you know,
call it gravy.
I mean, like, it's okay. So if you cook meat in it, it's gravy. If you don't cook meat in it and it's just tomatoes, it's sauce. This is another distinction that people don't understand. But again, because you tell me if I wasn't, say like I'm not a real or I'm not a whatever, that's part of who I am. That's part of my identity. That's part of my upbringing. I love that my great grandparents came over the boat. I love that I'm an Italian with red hair because it makes me different. I like not being normal. I like being different. I like being me. And if somebody took a piece of that identity away, that would be very damaging to me psychologically. Because it's part of how I define myself, and it's part of how my personality came to be, and it's part of who I am as an individual. And now I know it's not as serious now today to be Italian. It's it is what it is. But like 100 years ago, coming over Ellis Island,
Italians weren't white.
No, Italians weren't white. Italians weren't white, and if you were an Italian, you were a piece of shit, you were a wop, and you were this, and you were that, and we're the original, not the original, but like we're some of the original, not illegal immigrants, but looked down upon immigrants coming over this boat for refuge and getting their names changed at Ellis Island. You know what I mean? Us and the Irish, that was original. You weren't American, you weren't English.
Yeah,
is really what it was. You weren't Anglo-Saxon, and then that just grew and grew and grew and grew and grew. And then a lot of what we were talking about again with these societal systems that keep people down, it's because, it's like it's just leftovers from slavery. These systems are put in place as leftovers from slavery because these people couldn't deal with Black people being as or more successful than them after they were just slaves. Because then again, you have to question your own morality, especially like if you were a slave owner and all of a sudden these people that you didn't think were people are now more successful and smarter and more educated than you. how evil are you as a fucking individual to deal with the
Fucks
fact
with
that you
your
imprisoned these
ego.
people? How evil of an individual were you, or how misinformed were you that you fucking did this thing to another human being, and now you have to deal with that? And most people are going to deal with that again with those walls. It has to get
Yeah.
through all these walls to get to the center of who they are before they can get that idea in and let it change them and be okay with that, you know? We need to let these things in and have more conversations. And like I was saying, you know, it takes assertive people. It takes assertive people to drive points home. You need to be confident. You need to be assertive. You need to be strong. And all of that is possible, male, female, or in between, you know?
Yeah, and strength can look like many different things.
Yes.
Assertiveness and strength and confidence can present in very different ways. It's not just lawyer yelling at the jury about what the truth is. Like, it's not that one image of strength.
No, you're out of order. You
Yeah,
know?
it's not just
Yeah.
that. It's so many different things.
And it takes people like you as well, who are trained. You're not only a member of the community, but you're a trained professional.
Yeah.
You know, it was like it was meant to be, you know?
Like, who knew?
Yeah.
Just this like little queer person obsessed with sex.
Well, I mean, like we're all obsessed with sex. It's just how we deal with it. Everybody's obsessed with sex.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we think about it all the time. What it was, the male brain think about sex like every 5 seconds, or that's the old bullshit statistic that used to circulate around that men would think about. That's just another way for them to say that women don't think about sex, but men think about sex. You know what I mean? But yeah, individuals think about sex constantly.
And this is also not to erase like the very legitimate people who identify as asexual and who don't have sexual interest or don't have sex, or, you know, engage in only certain kinds of sexual experiences, maybe just solo sexual experiences. Like, I guess this is one way that my understanding of sexuality has evolved. Like, in high school, I was like, everybody is sexual and everybody must be sexual, and if you don't masturbate, there's something wrong with you. Like, I was that kind of sex positive crusader who was like still just preaching something and not accepting the variation in sexuality. And now it's like, no, you do whatever you want. Like, as long as it's consensual, you do whatever you want, even if that's not having sex. Like, go you.
You can be whoever you want as long as your motto is do no harm. That's my understanding of it. As long as your intention is to do no harm to others, like, you know what I mean? Like, if your off is something very Buffalo Bill like, then yeah, you've obviously need help, and that's not right. But like,
well, you know what? If that's your thing and you want to like pay someone to make a silicone skin, if you want to pay someone to make you a silicone skin suit so you can feel like you killed a bunch of people and like masturbate in your skin suit, go for it. Just don't hurt any real people.
Yeah, basically what you're saying is deal with whatever you have going on inside of you responsibly, regardless of what it is. And
yes.
if you feel shame for the things that you're feeling on the inside, you need to discuss them with a professional so that you can then sort your feelings out and find what the most healthy approach to life would be from there.
Right. And probably also find another person who shares your sexual interest that you can do some really fun role play with.
Yeah.
Because they exist.
You're like, oh, trust me, they exist.
Yes,
there's
they
a Reddit.
exist.
They're on Reddit, guys. Just dive. They're out there.
Reddit, FetLife, OkCupid, Tinder, they're all over the place.
Yeah. It's so funny because like we're only told in the mainstream about like the socially accepted dating pool, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then everything else is like this huge big out thing, you know what I mean? Which is good because it's out there and it's talked about, but at the same time I feel like now it's time for things to start to like blend into one another and be normal. It has to no longer be viewed as this. The first thing that comes to mind is like RuPaul's Drag Race, right? Mm-hmm. Because everybody sees it as the show is the show, obviously, but like people will think gay or trans or cross, even if you just want to say people who just cross dress and are whoever they are, or trans or whatever it is, that's what they picture. They picture Nathan Lane in the birdcage. They picture,
Right.
you know what I mean? They picture RuPaul coming out in like a dress that's like 14 feet wide and like a wig that's 6 feet tall. You know what I mean? And being powerful and dramatic and this and that and the third. And that attitude came about in the same way that I was just talking about demonstrating strength. It's like this attitude in this art form is, because I'm sure they don't like me now because I broke up with their friend. But, my ex and I, her best friend is a drag queen and who was auditioning for RuPaul's at the time and whose drag mom was on RuPaul.
Who is their drag mom?
Sugar something.
Sugar cane.
Yeah, I think I don't remember. I think
Yeah, don't worry about it. It's fine.
Hispanic. Sugar.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Dude, I forget. But regardless, so I believe it was. I'm trying not to say too many names. Also, at the same time,
Yeah.
I don't want to like have anybody get upset. But there was a lot of things going on in that group that I have talked about in other episodes that was detrimental to me in my life at the time,
Sure.
like certain substance usage and stuff like that. And that's my own decision. You know what I mean? It was my own decision to be there at the time. But at the same time, like I have openly talked about how, and even just to not, in an effort to not be a hypocrite and things that I might not have said on episodes, but I've said to friends and other individuals that I agree with, that the way that things were dealt with and the way that things were thought about a lot of the times in those instances was not healthy and was not, what's the best way that I can put this? Self-destructive. I think that's the phrase I'm looking for.
Sure.
A lot of self-destructive, irresponsible behavior with substance and with ideology and just partying, and it was unnecessary. But again,
back to drag.
but the point is I have experience with, I've met lots of homosexual and in between, and homosexual, straight, trans, bi, queer, drag queens, and I've had a lot of interactions with a lot of different people, and the bigness of it all, from my understanding, is kind of a fuck you to the people that were telling them that they can't be
small.
who they are, to be
Yeah.
small. So you respond with this bigness, and I'm not saying anything bad about that. I think that's a beautiful thing. But as far as society is concerned, it's time to normalize. And it's time to calm down. And it's time to be like, yeah, you're trans, so what? Be who you are. Yeah, you're queer, so what? Be who you are. Like they're like.
What if what they are is big?
Well, I'm like that's okay too. You know what I mean? Like I'm saying to just be okay with whoever they are, and however they are, and not have it be this thing where people can then virtue signal, or people can then there's a good thing about holding up signs and protesting and being on, and like being on the side of people, and then there's other people who are just kind of faking it and just want to look good and want to look cool.
Oh, of course.
And I think it's time that society just finally just fucking accepts people for who they are, and we stop making such a big deal about people being different than other people and other, and shit that makes you uncomfortable. You know what it does? It makes you grow.
Makes you grow.
Yeah, it makes you grow.
Yeah.
Pain is growth.
Unfortunately, we have decades and decades and decades worth of learning and unlearning to do to get to that spot. As much as we might want it now, we're not going to get it now. Because
it's the same thing as evolution. It's like, genetic evolution is not about us. It's not about our children. It's not about our grandchildren. It's about our great-grandchildren. And it's the same thing with societal and emotional and mental evolution. It's, it's about a couple generations from now, what are we going to be able to build for them?
Yeah. And it's like, I guess the way that I think about this is the way that I think about abolition. Like, if we could just abolish the whole system and start from scratch and be like, okay, now we all just accept each other for who we are and bias is eliminated, that would be awesome.
That would
Can
be
we
great.
really do that? No. So we have to like work towards those ideals while also working within and adjusting the systems that we have until we can maybe get rid of some systems altogether in a way and know that what's left behind or what else is in place is sustainable.
Yes.
So, yeah.
It's an uphill battle, you know. It's a lot, and there's so like there's more people out there that are completely on the opposite side of this argument
Yes.
than we realize, you know. And it's
Yes.
like, you know, one of the things that gets to me is like, how do you respect people when it's their religion that's telling them to be a certain way? You know, and how do you respect people's beliefs, and how do you be all inclusive when then you'll have a whole group of people who are the mainstream, who, you know, their Christian ideals or whatever religious ideals, you know, may have it be like, because even in the Quran, you know, you're supposed to kill homosexual people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think for me, it's understanding that everyone's coming from a specific place. Like, everyone is coming with some kind of education or some kind of like way of understanding things that they're not responsible for necessarily. Like, they're not responsible for learning the things that they learned when they were growing up, but they're responsible for how they enact those ideas. Like, you can very well believe something because of your religion and not go out of your way to harm someone. And so I try as best as I can to respect those differences and understand them and find compassion for those people who believe things that are different from me. And the best way that I can do that is to understand that that comes from a particular place. Like, and that more often than not, they didn't have control over it.
Yeah.
And if you're an asshole, if you're a fucking outwardly like bigoted asshole, you can change that. And you can still probably learn a bunch to like change how you think about things. But do I blame you for having those thoughts to begin with? No.
I think that's a difficult concept for people to wrap their heads around, especially nowadays. We tend to blame people for their upbringing and for how things came to be in their belief system, you know. I worked with somebody who I've talked to you about a lot who was openly bigoted, you know, very, very, very openly bigoted. Of course, except when we were around our black coworkers, but like, you know, very openly bigoted. And it was like, you know, had spent time in prison, had seen the worst of the world, was part of a biker gang, grew up all over the country and was associated with criminals his entire life and saw the worst of everybody and was in these clubs that, you know, that's their belief system. That's how they are. And everybody was like, how do you communicate with an individual like that? And it was like, because we would have conversations like this. And he would be like, oh, you know, you're a dumb kid. But I'd be like, I'm fucking not a dumb kid. I was like, how do you
No, you're not.
You know, like, how did, well, because, you know, I was 21, 22 at the time, but I was like, you know, like, how do you fucking think like that? Like, explain to me how that works to you. You know what I mean? Like, and then we would discuss it and we would talk about it. And then he would be like, oh, you know, except for, whatever his name was that was working at the shop. He'd be like, he's one of the good ones. He was a black guy, you know, like he's one of the good ones. Like, how can you say he's one of the good ones? Like, the fuck is the matter with you? Like, are you one of the good white people? Like, what's, and these are the conversations we would have. We would have arguments, but like, I didn't hate him for being in his 50s and having this upbringing that led him to believe the way that we were. I would just look at him and be, you're an idiot. Like, what the fuck is the matter with you? Like, grow up, learn, you know?
But the thing is, like, that's the cultural soup that he was raised in.
Yeah.
It's like,
I like that definition, the cultural soup.
The cultural soup. That's what I call it. Like,
that's what you should call your podcast if you start.
Cultural soup. Yeah, like, but we all grow up in that kind of cultural soup. And that's not our fucking fault. But like, we do have a responsibility to reevaluate that stuff and to, if we're harming someone, do something about it. Like, change what you're doing, apologize, examine like why that came to be, and be different.
People
Do
don't understand there's
better.
no difference between any individual. You're all human beings with this like 1 in a trillion chance at life, you know?
All of us are fucking up. All of us are garbage. Like we're beautiful, like we're amazing, we're a miracle, and we're also trash. Like
Yeah.
at the same time.
Like the Earth's
We are
pimples.
trash, and we are fucking up every day in like ways that we cannot even imagine. And we are lucky if people let us know that we fucked up so we can be better.
Yes. That's what I think I love about the martial arts too, is because like it humbles you and it changes you. And the only thing that you have at that point is how hard you work, you know?
Mm-hmm.
One of my training sisters, I don't want to get hit by her ever. Like, you know, I really don't ever want her to, she's punched me before and it's not fun. It's not fun to be hit by her. You know what I mean? And people will look at her and be like, oh, you know, she's a woman. It is what it is. Da, 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 da. But like, no, she's a badass. She'll fuck you up, you know? Like, and like, you know, our school is home to the first female black sash in our system. And,
Well,
you know, and like and it had nothing to do with like women not being able to hack it. It just was what it was. You know what I mean? Because it's based on if all you have to do is show up and put the work in. And like I said, it doesn't matter if you're gay or straight or trans or male or female or young or old or whatever. Because you have stories like that. And you have stories like Sifu Fred Christie, who was in his 50s when he started training and couldn't walk down the stairs to the school. And then after a few years was throwing jumping kicks, you know what I mean? Of consistent training and effort, and was, you know, and he opened our Myrtle Beach branch, you know. He's really, unfortunately, he passed away, and I never got the opportunity. I unfortunately never got the opportunity to meet him in person. But his story is tremendously inspirational.
Yeah.
I reference him constantly because just the tale of who he is as a human being. He had a career and he retired and decided to have a career in martial arts in his 50s. You know, and
that's dope.
like, you can be whoever. The point is, you can be whoever you want to be, and like training and martial arts and physical discipline and stuff like that is definitely a way to check yourself and definitely a way to overcome your ego. You know what I mean? Like, you could do 2 pull-ups yesterday, and then today you worked hard enough that now you can do 3 2 weeks later. And it's like, you know, that's just you working on yourself and being honest with yourself. And it also exposes your limitations and your weaknesses and who you are as an individual, and constantly pushing your body will then in turn push your mind, you know. And it's an opportunity for me to learn. I listen to a lot of podcasts when I work out. I don't really listen to a lot of music. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to a lot of information. I watch a lot of videos on the treadmill about learning how to do new things, you know. Like, it's well, when the gyms are open, but like, you know, it's an opportunity for you to be a better you, and it's an opportunity for bullies to not be bullies anymore, because they understand, you know, like the best protection against evil people is good people who are more skilled in violence. That's an old Bushido code, you know. Like, and it's true, because it's part of who we are as individuals, you know. Like, violence and war and physical confrontation has always been a part of human beings, and when it's trained and when it's learned and when it's a skill, then you realize, first of all, how awful it actually is, and you never actually want to ever really use it. And secondly, you have a confidence in knowing that, like, you know, if I can stand in front of my teacher, who is much better than me all the time and who is going to punch me in the face, and know that I'm going to learn from it and be able to overcome that fear, why shouldn't I, like, then overcome my insecurities with, like, saying they? You know what I mean? Like, I went climbing yesterday for the first time in a while because the gyms have been closed. And that one finally opened. And, you know, Jen's brother-in-law looked at me and he's like, you haven't climbed in months, but you're doing a lot better with your fear, it looks like. And I was like, well, I thought to myself, if I'm halfway up the wall and I trust my harness, why not go all the way up the wall and trust my harness? If I'm halfway there, I might as well finish and go the rest of the way, you know? Because it's the indoor gym. You climb until you touch the touch the
Yeah.
reel, and then oh yeah, because Ken goes climbing.
Yes, he does.
I want to go climbing with him so bad. I gotta
my
get out. I
God.
gotta get out there. I'm sure he's much better than me. I can't even handle a 5'10".
He would love to climb with you.
I would love to go. I would love to go. If we, as soon as it's okay for us to make trips and stuff like that,
Yeah.
which I think we're right about there. But again, things need to open up a little bit more before I'm going to be comfortable kind of like going to traveling between states and stuff like that.
Understood.
It's like the same reason I didn't go to any protests. It's like I have clients that rely on me. So I don't want to act, well, at the same time, I do believe in medical freedom, and I do believe that, we are kind of misinformed as to why we're wearing masks, and you see people that are wearing masks while they're driving and stuff like that, and just don't understand, just wear your mask when you're near people, because you're just preventing your spit from hitting them. That's really all it is. That's the only, your mask isn't saving you. Your mask isn't preventing an airborne virus from getting to you. If the person in front of you isn't wearing a mask, you're pretty much at risk. It's just you showing courtesy to other people, which I think is kind of like what we're all kind of talking about right now. It's just showing courtesy to other people, but like I was saying, if I can overcome that discomfort, why not translate that into social situations and to the rest of my life? If I can be confident enough to do these things, then why can I not be confident enough or comfortable enough with myself to then challenge my own viewpoints when it comes to how people want to be identified and how people want to be viewed and spoken to and spoken about.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a more inclusive and loving universe and planet, so that we can all be the most successful individuals that we can be. Imagine how much further society would be if we had it be, if we just gave people that universal income. If we just reallocated our,
it would be so much fucking better.
let's just say $600 a week until you make a certain amount of money on your own. And then once you make that certain amount of money, you don't get the aid anymore because you don't need it. But if you're making under $50,000 a year, $600 a week could be the difference between you being able to buy a house.
Yep.
It could be the difference between you being able to pay off a credit card or make your school payment or make your car payment. It could be the difference between you, everyone was like, you didn't get the swab test because it was going to cost you money. Don't you think that it's worth it? What if they tell you not to go back to work? And it's like, well, sorry, I had to make my car payment.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And I had to hustle.
Couldn't get to work if I didn't have that.
Yeah. Well, I'll ride my longboard to the office and show up sweaty. It doesn't. There's a lot of change and a lot of good that can come from the state of the world right now. And while it's confusing and uncomfortable, it's nothing good comes easy, and nothing long lasting or nothing, no pivotal societal change ever came from comfort and just oh yeah, we realize now, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like this civil rights movement, you had people getting murdered. You had people, getting sprayed with fire hoses. You had riots in the streets. You had protests. You had sit-ins. You had all this kind of shit. And now, and you had the same, and every situation has been the same. We're going to talk about the looters, and that's all we're going to talk about. And we're going to let the looters distract. Yeah, the looters are bad people. Of course, they're bad fucking people. You shouldn't be looting, and you shouldn't be taking advantage of a riot that's going on that has fucking nothing to do with you, and then go get it just to go get a TV. Because that's the same. There's people that are going to virtue signal, and there's people that are going to take advantage of bad situations for their own personal benefit. You know what I mean? It's like that's
people are more important than profit or belongings. So don't let it distract from what's actually happening.
Right. Just deal with it, and then just keep the mainstream focused on the task at hand. You know what I mean? And it's this duality, not duality, but well, it is a duality. This two-sidedness of everything, and you're either on the right or you're either on the left, and it's like, dude, the left isn't even the left anymore. It's like that's not even, and the right isn't the real right. It's not what it was. It's all bullshit, and it's all the same. They're the same bullshit group They're the same bullshit group pretending to be two different groups. That's all it is. And it's all about who's going to have control of the money and power so that they can keep getting more money and keep getting more power and keep things moving in the direction that they want it to move in. Of course, I would like to see an administration come into power that makes things more accepting and changes the narrative. And yes, the dumb fucking rhetoric and stupid shit that comes out of the president's mouth is not presidential. And it's fucking ridiculous and it's absolutely absurd. A lot of the things that have gone on. At the same
And
time,
harmful.
and absolutely 100% harmful. At the same time, I don't think that there's going to be much good that comes out of the other office either. It's going to be more of the same. And then, you know, you do things the right way, and you don't ruffle any feathers, and you let it go through the channels, and then you have another Obama presidency of 8 years of inaction because he couldn't get anything done because everybody stopped him every step of the way. So we're a little bit luckier because we have more of a Democratic Congress now than we did because we had a very Republican Congress when Bush came, after Bush. We had a very Republican Congress, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And now I believe we have more Democrats that are in there that will help kind of like sway the legislation and the decision making. So he can potentially get more done than during the Obama administration. And of course, he was Obama's vice president. So Biden will, I'm sure, have a lot of the same ideals and kind of like carry over a lot of the same ideologies. But, you know, it's like the Affordable Care Act didn't work. It's not helping me at all. You know, like the Affordable Care Act didn't work. It actually made things more expensive for a lot of people. It hurt a lot of people and it hurt a lot of small business. Not to say that, like, of course, the best, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, you know, but it's like, I just don't believe in anybody at this point. I'm just so fucking done. I
agree with you. It's hard to believe anybody guilty until proven innocent.
Yeah.
I guess the way that I'm sitting with it is like, I know what comes from a Trump presidency, and it's really threatening and really damaging to people, particularly in the LGBTQ community and in the BIPOC community. And while I don't have full confidence that those things would be remedied with the Democratic ticket right now, it does give me confidence that Biden and Bernie are like working on policies together. And I feel like
I do like that. I do like that.
I feel like that ticket we could more easily hold accountable than, it's like this happens in therapy all the time. People know that they want something to be different, but they don't know that the different thing that they try is going to work. And so they stick with the same old shit, even though it doesn't bring them any happiness or any progress, because they don't want to take the risk of going for the new thing.
Right.
And I guess I think about this election like that. Like, do I know that that will work? No. Am I willing to try, knowing how fucking insufferable what we have is? Yes, I think so.
I see what you're saying. I still ascribe to hating everybody equally. You know what I mean?
That's fair.
It's like it's and you know what? At the same time too, it's like the whole Epstein thing and everybody involved, it makes me very uncomfortable. And there's, I mean, obviously it sickens me, and there's so much going on that we don't know about.
Always.
And there's so much that has happened, and people that are in bed with it, not literally, but, you know, like in bed with one another, or literally, who the fuck knows? That again, we'll never know the truth. The media is owned. It's people are paid to say and subscribe to a narrative. You only find out what you're supposed to find out unless you do the digging yourself, which is why I say again and again, Freedom of Information Act. Look shit up. Realize that the shit that our government has done, and realize the power that other agencies have. You know, we talk about the war on drugs, but we always in passing say that the CIA started it. It's like, oh yeah, but the CIA started it. But it's like we don't even realize the gravity of that. you know, they used drug money to fund political assassinations, to fund operations, to do all that. You know, the crack epidemic of the 80s and the heroin epidemic was started by our own government. And you think that's not continuing? You think that if they were making a profit that they're not continuing to make a profit, you just don't fucking know about it? Like, that's where my brain goes. And maybe, you know,
Follow the money.
Exactly, follow the money. Call me a conspiracy theorist, call me crazy, but I just can't ascribe to a president who is coming out now to be this, you know, who the DNC is holding up, who in the 70s said lots of racist shit. 70s and 80s said lots and lots of fucking just absolute racist bigot bullshit.
So does that count as you participating in cancel culture?
Potentially. It could be potentially me not realizing that I have a little bit of that. I don't necessarily mean to cancel him. I also am every day learning more and continually trying to educate myself and make the best decision that I can come November. I'm just saying where my brain's at right now, and I'm not speaking from a place of anything finite. As I said, I am 100% comfortable being wrong. I love being wrong, and I love being proven wrong. Even when it makes me angry, because if it makes me angry, that's the biggest change. That's a bigger change.
Yeah,
if being proven wrong makes me very, very angry, then that's something that I then have to heal from and learn about. And this is an ideology that I feel like a lot of people can learn from, is that if something pisses you off, it's because it's deep-seated. Your anger is bullshit. Your anger is your ego trying to protect itself, and it's not real. I mean, like, not to say that like your emotions don't matter and that your emotions aren't real, but like the fact that you feel anger doesn't fucking matter to anybody else. You know what I mean?
No, anger is a second level emotion. Like, there is always a different emotion underneath the anger, where like anger is expressed outwardly, like it's towards something else, but there's always some inwardly expressed emotion underneath that. So like that's what needs to be attended to when you feel angry.
Yeah, so when you feel angry, what that really is a sign that there's something else underneath the surface that you need to then learn about yourself.
Exactly.
So when things piss me off, good. I'll take my time to be angry about it, and I'll apologize. I've always said it's better to ask forgiveness than permission, you know? So it's like, I'm not going to ask for permission to feel how I feel. I'm going to feel how I feel, and if I'm wrong, then I'm sorry. You know what I mean?
So are you saying that I made you angry by asking if that was cancel culture?
No, I'm saying that Biden makes me angry. I'm saying that the whole situation makes me angry, and I'm fucking pissed off that we have a decision between, you know, somebody who is just not fucking presidential at all, and who doesn't realize that, you know, let's just for argument's sake, say that he's oblivious and that he's being honest and that he doesn't hate anybody and it is what it is, and he just says some stupid shit. How can you be the leader of the free world?
I think he is oblivious. I think he's stupid. I think he really believes that he doesn't have any bias. And that is what most people believe about themselves. But we all have bias. Again, we like all have been swimming in this cultural soup since we were infants, before we were even born. So how could we not be impacted by it? And to deny that is like dumb. It's dumb.
And saying that, as far as what you were saying before, saying that you made me angry by saying it could be cancel culture. No, it doesn't make me angry, but it certainly is challenging to the way that I am thinking about things. And I like being challenged. That's kind of why I did this too. I like being challenged. I like it when people say things to me and I'm like, huh, I never thought of it that way. Maybe I am wrong, because it just means that I'm learning. That's just what this, you know, that's just learning. And yeah, he said something like I've openly said before that, like, I think it's ridiculous that people talk, like, he said some stupid shit about his daughter, but at the same time, like, I've have friends' parents that have said worse and joke about their kids, and then like have people be like fucking that's not right. You shouldn't say that. And I'm like, what? I'm trying to be funny. You know what I mean? Like, and it's, again, it's ignorance. It's ignorance and just poor taste.
Lack of awareness.
Lack of awareness, which is like so unbelievably important for a president to have. You have to be aware. And now,
Yes.
now nobody, I don't think any president has ever gotten it in their first 4 years, especially if you come from a place where you're not political in the past. You know what I mean? Like Reagan was not a politician. He was an actor. You know, maybe he had a little bit of history in politics coming up to the presidency. Trump, none. He's just an asshole who got a bunch of money from his dad and fucked a bunch of people out of money to get more money for the rest of his life. And then now all of a sudden he's the president and he's trying to do good things. You know what I mean? Sounds a lot like he finally had to. So here's what I think. Okay, so I'm going to put myself in Trump's orange stained shoes, you know? So talking about his spray tan and getting on the insides of his shoes. So like,
We got you.
yeah. So let's say I'm Trump. Okay. And I am now finally in the 4 years of the presidency. I can't fire people who talk shit about me. I can't turn the channel off. I can't stop it. Now I am forced to hear and deal with and process and spend 4 years dealing with how much of a fucking piece of shit I am now that it's all out there in the media. Maybe he'll try to do some good shit in the next 4 years to make up for fucking bullshit, but that's like, that's a fairy tale.
Yes,
That's a fucking fairy tale. And this is where a lot of people are trying to. I say a lot of people very vaguely and very broadly. I'm just saying, like, in conversations that I've had with people like myself who like don't know what to think, and I very much am a person who like I don't know what to think. I don't know what the right decision is. I don't know where to go, and I'm hoping that I can figure it out by November when I get to submit my ballot. And I'm trying so desperately to figure it out now. But I mean, like, that's a fairy tale that people are saying, or people telling themselves, maybe he'll make up for it. Maybe he'll da-da-da-da-da, because I don't want to deal with that. And then you have people who are deep into the conspiracy theory about the pedophile rings and Epstein's list and people who have been to the island and people who are involved in all, not even just the act itself, but the money that it makes. And who are deep people that we know, people that we went to high school with, that we're close with, like that are deep and all over social media about that. And that's how they're basing their decisions, and of course that's reality. That's fucking actually happening. So how deep does it really go? These are things that I question myself all the time. How deep into the Democrat, all this stuff about Biden being one, like, is that real? Because that's weighing on my conscience as far as making the decision as well. And then people try to throw Trump in there because there's evidence of, there's video of him with Epstein at parties. And it's like, and what I mean by making penance is like, let's just fucking throw it out there that that's reality, and that what he meant by drain the swamp is to eradicate all those motherfuckers. You know what I mean? Like, let's say that that's really what he was talking about. The eradication of sex trafficking and the higher up pedophile ring and getting rid of them. Like, what if that's what the mission is? What if that's what the goal is that you can't talk about in the mainstream? Because if you say it out loud, then you're an insane person. You know what I mean? But meanwhile, we know Epstein didn't kill himself. We fucking know that he didn't kill himself. And we know that Ghislaine Maxwell, that the however many people were on that list, that we're not hearing about all of them. You know what I mean? How deep does that go? And that's something that for me, even if you think I'm crazy, it disturbs me to my core. It disturbs me deeply that people like that can even exist, and that's a reality of something that was going on, and it goes into our own government, and it makes me question everything I've learned, everything I've read, everything I've thought about everybody. It makes me give certain people certain caveats that maybe I shouldn't, and it makes me think ill of certain people that maybe I should give them more credit, because again, I don't know which direction to go, and I don't know what to believe. I don't know what to think. I don't know how to feel. And there's on top of everything that we've talked about, that is something that's very real and very present in my reality and a lot of people's realities. And as far as, you know,
that's not even on my radar.
Yeah.
Like, this is showing up nowhere in the media that I consume as like anything. So I barely even know what you're talking about.
There's yeah, it goes deep if you look into it, and like there's different levels of it. Like there's people that will go, you know what I mean? You know how it goes with certain things. Like the Pentagon, did you hear about how the Pentagon released that like UFOs exist?
No.
The Pentagon came out and was like, we have crafts that are not made on this earth. So it's like, you're telling us that we have vehicles that weren't made on the planet, you know? Lots of different, I think the CIA and the NSA just declassified like 5 million or some crazy number, different documents about like extraterrestrials and shit like that. And also, yeah.
What?
Yeah. And also, there's shit out there about the pedophile ring going deeper and deeper and deeper into the government, to the extent that Obama and Biden and Hillary and all of them are very much so involved, and that was what the big thing about the emails between Hillary and Anthony Weiner were. Not so much that it's, you know, just her emails are compromised and whatnot like that, but that it had to do with sex trafficking and child trafficking and whatnot. And that, you know, and that's what the whole, and people call you crazy for looking into things like Pizzagate because it's given a ridiculous fucking name. And there was that crazy person that went into the pizza parlor and shut up the floor, when really it was called that because they used, I forget the details, but like, there's always a little bit of truth. I'm not saying that it's true. I'm saying that there's always some truth. And
Sure.
the some truth of it is that, yes, sex traffickers and pedophiles are known to use certain food items as code word in emails and text messages and stuff like that. Like, why is the Obama administration sending an email saying they need $14,000 worth of hot dogs? You know what I mean? For a party at night. You know, why, and, you know, hot dogs would be boys and pizza would be girls and stuff like that. And these were the code words that they were using. Long story short, that's how the term Pizzagate came around. Because that's what like the woman who wrote the article didn't look into it. There's a documentary, and again, I don't know what to believe, so I put in air quotes documentary called Out of Shadows that you can look into. That's on YouTube. There's a lot of stuff that gets posted and then removed. There's a lot of stuff that's out there that I'm like, that's absolute bullshit, and that's way too far. You know what I mean? There's a lot of stuff that I look into that I just know, like, okay, now you're just taking it another step that it doesn't need to go to. And other things that, like, I'm not sure who the fuck is involved. Who went to that fucking island? You know, there's talk of, they found in Epstein's house a painting of Bill Clinton in a blue dress wearing red shoes. The red shoes... There's a whole other conspiracy theory about red shoes being made from human skin. That the red leather is what happens when you make human skin leather, and that the red shoes or a red wallet or something like that, or a red belt, is your trophy. And that you are now part of this group, and this is your trophy that you're wearing, and that the reason that the Clintons' emails are such a fucking problem, and that Clinton flew with him 26 fucking times to that island, was because they were deeply, deeply, deeply involved with Jeffrey Epstein and everything that he was up to. So now you have the whole fucking Democratic Party is now subject to my own personal fucking, like, who are you and what are you really involved in?
Yeah. So... Again, I know literally nothing about any of this.
I'm just saying this is where my crazy ass has fucking been looking into, and I don't know what to believe anymore. You know, I don't know what to believe anymore.
I will say that statistically, the likelihood that the entire Democratic Party are...
Oh, no, absolutely not. It's not everybody.
Or, like, statistically, think about how many people are pedophiles. Like, statistically.
Yeah.
It's very small. The likelihood that they're all in the government is even smaller.
Yes.
So let base rate data help you make some decisions.
Yeah, I definitely hear that. But again, it's something that I then have to also internally process and like do my own research and like kind of
Yeah.
maybe calm down from all the information that I have consumed from everything. Because
Yes.
I pride myself on trying to read from all sides
Hmm.
and trying to take in information from both places and make my own opinions and not just listen to one group. You
Hmm.
know, obviously, I'm not listening to white nationalists. I'm not listening to racists. I'm not listening to anti-gay. I'm not listening to stuff like that because I obviously know what to tune out, what not to tune out. But as far as political analysts and like what certain decisions lead to certain other decisions, like even then, even there's even talk of like the purpose of the wall is again because a certain percentage of sex slaves come from the southern border, and that the purpose of a wall would be to prevent uh, the people coming from the southern border, the sex trafficking coming from the southern border, not so much illegal immigrants, but so much more the trafficking that's happening, and that there's so much money in trafficking that it's just as, if not more, lucrative than the drug trade. So,
Yeah. I think like I hear that, and even if there were good intentions behind that, think about the impact.
right.
Like, you could have really good intentions to like end sex trafficking by like shutting down websites that like the FERPA and SESTA, you know about all those laws, like the internet laws that like end encryption and make it really hard for sex workers to like work on the internet now.
No.
Okay. So I'll use a different example. Um, or I'll try to use a different example. Did I say FERPA?
I think you did.
That's a school thing. I'm saying the wrong acronyms. Um, sometimes laws are written to create some certain result, like eradicate something that's problematic.
Okay.
But it also eradicates other things that are not actually problematic and like end up hurting marginalized communities anyway. So like building a wall, even if it is meant to keep sex trafficking to a minimum or reduce drug trafficking,
At the same time, then you just take a plane or build a tunnel.
sure, but also like that is a racist law trying to keep brown people out of our country, or a racist thing trying to keep brown people out of our country, and equating those people to drug criminals and sex trafficking criminals.
Yeah, and I don't bring it up to say that I agree with it. I bring
Oh,
it up.
I know.
I bring it up just to put it out in the air that there are people that's their thought process, that like
For sure.
that like it's a good thing because it's true intention. There's a lot of talk in the community of people that believe in that, and these are people that are going to vote, so it's fucking important to talk about. There's a lot of people that believe in that community that Trump is doing the right thing and that his whole thing is this secret mission to fucking take down the sex traffickers.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Yeah, and I think again, I think that's a fairy tale. I think if anything, he's gonna rat out his friends before they realize that he's part of the group. You know what I mean? Like
If there's
remember that?
anyone in the government that I would believe is at like these pedophilic sex parties, it's Trump.
It's
Of anyone.
it's like it's just the fuck is the point I'm trying to make? So like you got a group of kids in high school, right? They all steal shit from the gym. They steal a bunch of basketballs, and they get caught stealing a bunch of basketballs. And there's this one kid that runs out and goes, "It was them.
Yeah, that's
It
Trump.
was them. They did it." That's who I think Trump is.
Yes.
I think Trump was like, "Fuck yeah, let's do all this shit. Let's make all this money, and let's go to this shit, and let's do evil nonsense and it's awesome and let's, you know, and I'm fucking Donald Trump and whatever. And now that he's in a position where he can exonerate himself by stringing everybody up and hanging them and saying that he was the hero, I think that's what he's trying to do. He's a rat. He's a rat pretending to be a hero, you know?
Okay, so you've given me a lot of stuff to Google, which I don't know if that I'll believe any of it, but will certainly have a lot of entertainment value.
Yes, and it's like, how the fuck did this stuff? Just if you watch the Out of Shadows documentary, the guy that made it, he doesn't seem like he's getting anything from it. He put it out for free. He's not trying to sell you anything. He's not asking you for money or donations. He's, you know what I mean?
Wait, what's it called again? Out of the Shadows?
Out of Shadows. Out of Shadows. It's very well edited.
Okay.
And the guy who does the narration and who is the initial interviewer comes out and he talks about how he was a stuntman and he was at the highest levels of Hollywood and did stunts for all these big movies and met all these celebrities and then learned about all this stuff. Now, you can take that and you can believe it, and you can take that and you can go into a rabbit hole of absolute fucking 100% insanity. You know what I mean?
The only thing about this that I have any knowledge of is I listened to a series of episodes about this pedophile ring on last podcast on the left. That was from a while ago.
Oh, I love them, but I don't know the episode series you're talking about.
Oh, yeah. It references some kind of island where sex stuff happens. I can't remember much else about it, but I listened to that like years ago.
Oh, yeah. And there's also like all the and it can go into the whole Illuminati conspiracies as well, because there's a lot of satanic imagery involved. There's a lot of things on Epstein's Island that are you could say, you know, are in reference to or imagery of or in celebration of certain belief systems that would promote violence and murder and rape and killing and, you know, and
is that Epstein documentary on Netflix anything about this?
And the Epstein documentary on Netflix does not cover any of it. It really just, I haven't finished it, so I don't know if the last couple episodes do. But as far as
it's a series. I thought it was just one like movie.
Yeah, no. It's a few. There's a few episodes. What it really talks about is in detail what he did with girls in Florida.
Okay.
And how that then equated to, underage girls. What they covered so far in the Epstein documentary that I had seen was underage girls being paid as massage therapists that were not massage therapists, just being paid to give massages, and then he would take his pants down, you know, and one thing would lead to another, and it would be like, well, I'll give you more money if you do this, and then, you know, so just manipulation and abuse, and, you know, and then there were these rings. So if girls would come in and they weren't uncomfortable with it, he would offer them a lot of money to then recruit for him.
Sure.
So it became this like network and this ring that he had established for himself of people finding him people to molest. And the court cases involved in, did I finish it? I might have, and just blocked it out because it's fucking terrible. But like, you know, like the court cases involved and like what happened, and that Ghislaine Maxwell, the one who just was arrested, like they were still looking for her at the time they made the documentary. She had made death threats to people that had come out and spoken to law enforcement about Epstein, and, you know, people's families were said to be in danger. And, you know, he's got a lot of money and a lot of power. And he made his money and his power by lying about his position and lying on his resume and just being a good bullshit artist. And he made a lot of money doing that, and then getting to rub shoulders with the very important people. And, you know, it goes deep. And, you know,
okay.
Kevin fucking Spacey, you know, boom. How many Hollywood celebrities were on that island? And, you know, some people went to the island and came back and said nothing happened. They went for a dinner party and they came home, you know what I mean? And nothing happened. And Could very well be. You know what I mean? Like, if I was into some shit and everybody that came to my house I showed it to, I'm going to get caught eventually. But, you know, obviously you're going to have, you know, so obviously everybody that comes to the island is going to be privy to all the depravity that goes on there. But everybody that worked for him at the island also said, like, oh, yeah, Mr. Epstein this and Mr. Epstein that. And there were lots of young girls around, and I don't know what happened, and I don't know if anything. But, yeah, there were always lots of young girls around, and, like, it was always about young girls between the ages of XYZ. But then also, if you dive into the fucking dark web about the you know, because he had a very close relationship with Prince Andrew. So there's a lot of talk about his relationship with Prince Andrew and the pedophile ring being worldwide and it going into the highest levels of government worldwide. And there's footage that I have seen. I could not reproduce for you if I wanted to, because I saw it and was like almost threw up and had to just delete it, you know, of a boy who had tied sheets together, escaping naked, butt-ass fucking naked, from the second floor of Buckingham Palace. And it's very clear that this is building, because Buckingham Palace has a certain look to it. You know, Buckingham Palace looks like Buckingham Palace, climbing out of the window of Buckingham Palace. So why is a pubescent boy climbing out of a window of Buckingham Palace naked? That's because you're running for your life. That's why you're fucking doing that, because you're running for your fucking life. So what's going on there that happens? There's also talk that, like, the royal family doesn't wear their jewels and their royal garb anymore. You see the Queen comes out and Prince Andrew comes out in just regular suits and clothes when they have that. And they say that's because the British government is investigating them for all this pedophilia and all this stuff. And it's not public knowledge, but they've been stripped of the crown jewels and shit like that. But they're still doing their public appearances and stuff like that so as to not disturb the public and the community. And I don't know if that's true or not either. But it's like, well, you know what I mean? I don't know if that's true or not either, but it's like, what the fuck? Well, you're right. They're not wearing it anymore. Why wouldn't they wear their crown jewels anymore and do all this nonsense and do all this shit?
So it makes them targets? Maybe because people want to steal it?
Who the fuck is stealing from the Queen? Who's gonna come up in the middle of a public forum when she's on the second floor on a balcony of Buckingham Palace wearing her fucking necklace? You know what I mean? I don't mean like out in public. I mean like when they go to like a ceremony. You know what I mean? And she's sitting on the throne. She's supposed to have her crown on and the crown jewels and all this shit. Now she's just in her like lady suits. You know? So,
dude, I do not know.
I don't
wild.
fucking know. You got me on a rant as to why I'm super uncomfortable with everything going on. And like like I said, I've always been the kind of person that I'm a spiritual person. I believe in that there's more to the universe than that we can see. I've had psychedelic experiences, I've had meditative experiences, I've definitely touched another side. I've definitely believed in the power of spirituality and higher selves and stuff like that. And with that, I do also believe that there's more to this reality than we can perceive. And I believe that there's probably more to the reality of what goes on behind closed doors than we can perceive. And that if there's evidence of somebody out there with this ridiculous fucking list of government officials, that who do you trust? Who do you believe? How do you know what's real and what's not real? What I do know that's real is that we need to live in a more accepting and
compassionate world.
Accepting and compassionate world where people are responsible for themselves and people hold up the ideals of what is true. And the other dangerous thing about this conspiracy theory, okay? And this is kind of the crux of why I go this deep to explain it to you and to then bring it up, because this has a point to our conversation. There's a very dangerous thing that's happening with this conspiracy theory, and that people are using it against trans and gay. People are using it, talking about the satanic part of it. And that the reason that trans and gay and stuff like that is so now in the public is because it's part of this. And these are people who are going to vote. This is the problem. These are people who are going to vote. That people believe that this is fucking YouTube it. It's on YouTube. Fucking people believe that this is some kind of satanic ploy, and that people are straight or male or female, and that's it, and that anything otherwise is part of just normalizing and accepting and this, that, and the third, which then goes into France changing its age of consent to 15, because people believe that France changing its age of consent to 15 is part of this whole big fucking universal government, planet-wide government fucking ploy to make making sex with children normal, and making it okay to that it's the whole abomination theory. These are people who are going to vote. These are fucking people who are going to vote, who are on, please sync, who are gonna hide and not hide, but these are people who are gonna not talk about it publicly, yet be on their phones and be on YouTube and look at all this shit and let this fucking sway their decision. That part of it is the side that I'm like, what the fuck is the matter with you? How can you fucking possibly believe that? You know what I mean? How can you fucking possibly think that it's like some huge ridiculous fucking it just makes my head spin. It's like being back in the church. It's like being back in the church and getting yelled at for fucking having sex with my girlfriend. You know what I mean? Like, it's just so fucking ridiculous. It's so stupid and so ridiculous. And this is the shit that I'm hearing about.
I'm very sorry. I don't even know what to say.
And it's like, I don't expect you to, because it's not your wheelhouse, and you are an educated enough person to see anything like that and be like, you know what I mean? Swipe onto the next. Like, but these are people who were going to vote. You know what I mean? These are people who were going to vote. And this is the kind of information that's circulating out there that, like, it makes my head spin. Because, of course, there is the reality that there is, this list and who's on it and how deep may it go.
Who wrote
and
it?
There's the Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's girlfriend, that's in custody now, that outed all these people. She said she was going to sing like a canary for a reduced sentence, and she did. So there's a lot of Republicans, a lot of Democrats, a lot of governors, state, local officials, celebrities.
Dude, I think you need to do an episode on this.
Like a full episode? Like, who the fuck do I talk to?
I mean, we probably spent an hour talking about it. We got on the phone at 9:30 and it's 1 o'clock.
Jesus fucking Christ. This is going to be a long one. That's okay. It's fine.
Listen, it already is long. I need to pee. I don't mean to hijack your podcast, but like, I'm fucking tired, dude.
No, dude, not at all. I mean, like, I'm sorry, but it's like we started talking about like how this goes in, just to wrap it up, because there are people that are going to listen to this and be like, holy shit. So let's wrap it up. Every time Camille and I are on the phone, it's for 8 hours.
Yes.
We talk to each other once every 3 or 4 months on the phone, and it's for the day.
Yes.
So this is what this episode has become. It's the same thing as when I had that podcast with Terry, who you know. Logic. Because same thing. 2 old friends. And now this is the things that I've been looking into, and it sucks. It sucks. And it's like, I don't want to fucking care. I don't want to look into it. I don't want to have it be something that like, because again, you have to sift through it's another opportunity for bullshit. It's another opportunity for people to take things to another level, and the damaging thing about it, and the thing that I wanted you to weigh in on, if you knew anything about it, was how detrimental it can be to that community that needs to be lifted up right now, and needs to be accepted, and needs to be protected. You know what I mean? These are individuals and people that are just regular, loving, beautiful people, just like everybody else, that need to be protected and need to be, it's like the fucking witch trials.
Yeah. So
it's like
I'm
the fucking
sorry.
witch trials. It's like,
I'm sorry, I don't know anything about this particular, like.
Well, you know me. I don't shut up. I can go on forever. I just gave you some details, but it's like, so let's go back in time. Let's Wayne's World this shit. Let's go back in time. So you were giving advice for anybody who's trying to get their head straight and learn about a community that they are not a part of.
Yes.
Okay. And I brought this up. Let's caveat this. I brought this up and started going on this rant because there are crazy people, and not even crazy people, because I'm not a crazy person. I'm a very smart individual, and I have
Yes.
looked a lot into this stuff, and it scares me because there is the potentiality that it could be true. I'm not saying that it is true. I'm saying there is the potentiality that even 50% of it could be true, and even if 50% of it could be true, it's fucking disgusting.
Yes.
Um,
Is
and
it potentially, do you think it's potentially true that like trans people and gay people are sent by Satan?
Oh no,
And like,
absolutely no, no,
okay.
absolutely not. I believe that there is a potentiality that fucking Joe Biden is a pedophile.
Sure.
That's the potentiality that I believe, and that's what scares me.
Yeah.
Of course, the whole like fucking, and even let's even say that there is, and they believe that. Of course, it's not real, but like, because I know some people that'll be like, but this, not every YouTube video you see, I hate to break it to you, not every YouTube video you see is going to be true. But what you can do is look at the fucking list that she came out with and realize how many fucking politicians there are. Realize how many politicians there are on that list, and then be severely disturbed by our own government and how many people were in power at the time that were also not in and then reasons that it's not in the mainstream media, like all the names that came out, because it would be, we got an election coming up. You know what I mean? So this is where people are going to go off. They just want, let's get through the election and let's get Trump out and let's just go from there. And I kind of agree, but at the same time, Biden, like, anybody else. I felt this way with the fucking last one too. When it was Hillary versus Trump, it was like, please God, anybody else. 4 years later, I feel like we're just repeating ourselves. And I hope, I think it's inevitable that Trump is going to lose. I think it's inevitable
I feel
that Trump
the
is going to
opposite
lose.
way.
Really?
I feel like he's going to get another 4 years
You think
because
so?
of this. Because of this, EJ. Because everyone can come up with really good reasons, not Biden, and so can I.
But this is why I'm talking about it, and it's not to get like roped in with all the crazy people and whatnot, and it's certainly not to like fucking, it's like the opposite of virtue signaling when you're like, you talk about crazy shit just so people pay attention to you. I promise everybody, like, really, this is not that. This is just honest shit that, like, I took a break in June I remember I started the podcast and everything, and then I was silent all of June because I was so deeply disturbed by the information that I had received.
Yeah.
And I needed to sort out and realize how to use my voice and think about what I potentially believed and be okay being wrong, be okay being called crazy if I was wrong, and also feeling like this deep spiritual need to just kind of like discuss. And when I say spiritual in the fact that I do believe that the amorphous blobs, like you had discussed, the amorphous blobs that we all actually are given this sentience that is outside of anything else on this planet by something else, and that our consciousness is a gift and a miracle. And I do believe that, I don't know if past lives are real, I don't know if all that stuff is real, but I do believe that I have a spirit that is bigger and broader than me, and that has a connection with other realms, and that's just me. Maybe I took acid one too many times, you know what I mean? But that's just me. So that's what I mean when I say spirituality, my own personal definition of what that is for me. And I don't have any kind of moral caveats saying that anybody of any gender, race, creed is wrong because they don't agree with my definition of what that is. That's not what I'm saying whatsoever. I have no rules like that. I have no anything anti-gay, nothing like that whatsoever by any means at all. What I am saying is that I have this need to use my gift of gab, use my voice, use my ability to talk to people, and my ability to kind of interestingly get my points across, to maybe make aware or just even talk about things like the last episode we just talked about, like how you should work out, you know what I mean? And I think mental health is unbelievably important. I do believe how we accept the trans and gay and queer community, I don't remember every letter, but like, the LGBTQ community, like just accepting all of these individuals and holding them up and like making the strong, keep helping the strong be strong, helping the weak become strong, and protecting the people who need protection, so that they can be the best versions of themselves that they can be, and they can contribute everything that they could potentially contribute to society. Because we're holding
Yeah.
people back. We're holding people back, and the system is designed to hold certain people back. We talked about that with race. We talked about that with racism. It holds certain people back, and it prevents people from making the contributions to the earth that they could potentially contribute, and that's wrong, and it's not correct. And then you also have people who are uneducated, who are going to fall victim to or do have a religious background, a radical religious background, who are going to fall victim to this kind of ideology and this kind of information, who are going to watch one video on YouTube and then for the rest of time believe that every Democrat is a Satanist pedophile, and believe for the rest of time that fucking every celebrity, everybody involved, and everybody that's popular is, because there's people, we call them crazy people, but the term conspiracy theory was created by the CIA in the 60s to divert attention from the possibility that Lee Harvey Oswald was not the killer of JF Kennedy. That's where the term conspiracy theory comes from. So it's something, again, that's been taught to us by our own government to change our mindset, to change our mindset and sway public opinion. So could the right not then use this information to sway the vote and to lead people in the wrong way? You know what I mean? Like, it's dangerous. So you need to sift through the bullshit and get to the reality. And as far as I say all this shit so that we can get to this conclusion, this sentence here, and then we'll move on or end. And because I know I had to go to the bathroom too. So I took advantage of that one. I took advantage of that when I went to get the power cord. Sorry. So to say this, be educated. Know that there's more than what the media is showing you, but also be realistic and know that reality is often much more boring than we want it to be.
Yes.
So
the simplest answer is almost always the right one.
Right. And so the simplest answer for me would be yes. There's, let's just say that there's 1 million people in politics and there's 5% of them are pedophiles. So then you have 5,000 people who are pedophiles. That's a lot of fucking people. You know what I mean? So, like, of course, that's a lot of fucking people. And if Epstein was involved with all of them and a lot of them are paid off to be in high levels of government, then yes. Or not paid off, but are in high levels of government and can pay to be part of the society, then yeah, that's really scary and it's really terrifying. And even just the 50 people on that list that I read were very, very terrifying and very disturbing. But because of that, you still have 500 people that are just regular people just working in government. You know what I mean? So that's the reality of it. And the small number of evil doesn't mean that it's this great overarching conspiracy that is this thing that then bleeds into this right extremist ideology that is anti-gay, that is racist, that is pro-white supremacy, that is pro keeping the status quo the way that it is so that the rich can stay rich and the poor can stay poor. It's, there are people that are going to fucking pay off the media to give you the narrative so that you can't figure out which way is up. And as an under-informed yet intelligent individual, I myself am having difficulty sifting through all of the pieces of information in an effort to understand everything that's out there, and not turn my gaze away from anything, because I feel like I'd rather read it and then come to my conclusion and take the time to deal with it. But as now we approach November, it's frightening. It's frightening. So the point being, be realistic, follow your heart, and know that there's much more to reality and much more to the people on the planet than you might want to, that you might be comfortable with. And that, it's like trans is okay and gay is okay and all of this stuff is reality, and it's who people are, and we have to respect and love everybody for the individual selves that they are. And that any kind of information that's out there that's to sway you from believing that is out there to keep progression from happening, to keep things the way that they are, to keep
Yes.
people who
Maintain the status quo.
to maintain the status quo. And that's what you're being distracted by. That's what you're being that's the true evil, is that they are trying to beat down the people whose turn it is, so that they can continue their turn in power, and their time is over. And it's time for a new status quo, and it's time for a new society, and it's time for a new loving, inclusive earth. And that's
Jay,
yeah.
you realize you're an abolitionist?
I guess I do now.
You're saying burn it all down. Let's start afresh.
Fuck
Where
them. Fuck
we
them.
all-
Burn it all down. I'm just trying to think of like the reality. I don't say that because I don't know if saying burn it all down is a responsible way to talk about it.
You're right. You're right.
Because then again, you have people that hear burn it all down and they rope you in again with virtue signalers and people that say shit, don't know what the fuck they're talking about, who won't admit they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. But again,
But what you're saying is like the people in power, time to give it up and give power to people who deserve it.
right. And just because we are also at this time experiencing some very big revelations about the people who have been in power. Do not be distracted or led astray by the other information that you will find when you start researching that kind of stuff, because you will find information that will terrify you and that will make you think otherwise. And don't fall victim to it. Don't fall prey to it. So I love you. I
love you
so much.
too.
I thank you so much for doing this.
Of course. Anytime.
I really, really appreciate you taking the unbelievable amount of time to do this episode with me. I love that it went for so long. I know. I think it's great. I would love to have you back as soon as we, I would love to have you back and not go this far, but we'll talk about more important things on this topic, but we'll talk about more important things on this topic, and we'll think about anything you think of that you want to, bring to light or have an episode on. Absolutely. And I would love to get, we should do a three-way call and have you and Robin on, since you're a family, and we could discuss that. We could talk.
We're a family, but I've never even met Robin.
That would be great, though. We could talk about we could talk about transition. You could talk about potential. I think that would be awesome. But anyway, guys, again, thank you for tuning in. If you've made it this far, we might cut this into.
Wow.
I'm gonna cut this into a clip. If you've made it this far, applause to you.
Congratulations.
Happy birthday to Jen, who is probably pissed at me for doing this episode for so long on her birthday.
Sorry, Jen.
I think it's a very important one. I think we talked about a lot of really interesting stuff. It's going to make a lot of good clips to cut up into and some interesting points to make. And if you want to give Camille a follow, again, that's slow them at slow.themme on Instagram. She posts awesome stuff. Great information, and just cool shit. Just cool shit as far as fashion goes, as far as like challenging the status quo. And,
it's mostly social justice stuff and like clothes and makeup.
Yeah, but whatever. People love people. You will make people feel included that might not have felt included otherwise. And if you guys want to support the show, there is a Patreon at Temple Podcast, or you can go to anchor.fm and you can support the show that way. And go to YouTube, Temple on YouTube, and subscribe, like, comment, do the things that you do. And anywhere you find your podcasts. I mean, if you're listening, obviously you already know that, but if you're finding this in a clip on Instagram, anywhere you find your podcasts, guys, thank you so much. Camille, thank you so much. Don't hang up yet. I'm gonna end the recording. And guys, thanks again for listening to me rant. Have a good one.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff.